Good evening, Oakland and beyond. I hope y'all are doing great out there on this Wednesday night in the town, the East Bay, and beyond, wherever you may be tuning in from on our Twitch channel this evening. Been about 3 weeks since the last time we came at you. Some obvious reasons for that. We'll get into that here in a bit in case you've been away from our social media feeds during that time. And, of course, a lot to talk about in regards to the Oakland Athletics and a whole lot more on another exciting edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. Let's go ahead and get show number 316 of AsFAnRAdio underway. What's going on, everybody? It is the Legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown. I will be coming at you solo for this edition of AFR, as the boss man currently has a family-related matter that's been going on since earlier in the week and is ongoing at the moment, so he will not be joining us for tonight's edition of the show. Looking to hopefully have him back with us at next week's edition of the show, and obviously he'll be chiming in probably on the Twitter page every now and then. In fact, he's going to probably be tweeting out Roots updates while yours truly blabbles on about the A's and more here for the next 2 or so hours, give or take, depending on how long we take to get through things with just one individual doing the madness here tonight. Apologies, by the way, for a unplanned 3-week vacation here at A's Talk from the fans' point of view. Obviously had some stuff going on where we obviously moved up our last show, and we're going to take time off after the funeral for Grizz went down. Then my wife tested positive for COVID as a result of her mom catching it from someone at the senior rec center that she goes to over in Berkeley a couple times, of course, during the week. So her mom initially had it, currently is at a facility over in San Leandro, still isolating, recovering from it. Gave it to my wife, who just got over it this past Saturday, which is when you're truly tested positive for COVID. So, yeah, the corporal dodged the COVID bullet for a little over 2+ years, but, hey, came and finally got me in the butt, recuperating from it at the moment right now. Really, mild to not even, I would even equivalently call mild symptoms. The worst it got is had a little bit of a stuffed up nose at one point. I got over that about probably a day or two ago. I had a lack of energy for a little bit. I'm not going to lie that, but outside of those two things right there, really no other symptoms aside from that. Felt perfectly fine. I'm actually starting to notice that my energy's kind of getting back to my normal corporalish levels, I guess you could say, and I'll be retesting tomorrow, heading in the direction of hopefully the first of 2 consecutive negative tests, so that way I can get on about to going back out and about and be able to do my planned doubleheader next weekend with the Cal home opener, of course, going on over in Berkeley, and the Roots will be back home for their first home game in over a month next Saturday night as well. Cal's game, of course, is at 1 p.m. Next Saturday, September the 3rd, and the Roots will play against San Antonio at 7 p.m. over at Laney College. But obviously, if I do not have 2 consecutive negative tests, then I will continue to isolate here at Dub 6 Studios until I do have 2 negative tests in a row, because obviously I'm not going to contribute to this crap continuing to get spread around. I'm going to make sure I do my part to contain it, get it under control here, and kill it on my end. And then once I'm back out there with the rest of you who's out there in the town and beyond, do what I was doing beforehand to make sure that I don't get it again, and do that part obviously with y'all. So going to be a little interesting, obviously first time in a while having done all this, but pretty much that's what derailed things with last weekend's show, and obviously the wife being positive with it prior to that. So that's where we're at now here finally as we resume AsFAnRAdio and hopefully get back on a little bit of a regular schedule here with the broadcast. And, of course, as mentioned, I will be doing this edition of the show tonight solo, as, of course, I mentioned Boss Man has some stuff going on his end and won't be able to join us for this edition of the show. Couple quick things real quick. Yes, obviously we'll be doing recaps of at least the last week's worth of A's baseball, plus basically, to put it in baseball terms, the short version of the 2 weeks worth of games prior to that, of course took place after the last time we came at you here on the show. I guess you can say we're doing kind of a down on the farm report, though in reality basically just to touch basis on the updated top 30 prospects list for your Oakland Athletics. And let's see, what else was I going to put out there and make sure I threw out there tonight? Yes, I will be getting around to and sharing my thoughts on the situation with what could be potentially going down with Artie Moreno and the Angels. If in case you've missed out, myself and Boss sharing our thoughts since that news broke. What was it, I believe, yesterday was when all that happened. In case you missed out on that, the poll that we had going on from yesterday up until about a couple hours ago to weigh in on that. Yes, I do plan on sharing my thoughts on that, but I'm going to save that, as my final thought, or as part of my final thought on tonight's broadcast. And no Bear Raid segment tonight. We will resume the Bear Raid segment edition when we do next week's show, as obviously we'll be taking a look at what Cal football has on tap going into the 2022 season. And obviously with all this other stuff going on as well, it caused the Bear Raid podcast to get pushed back. So the plan is for the Bear Raid to get back onto its once every 2-week broadcast schedule, starting with the long-awaited show number 22 on September the 4th is when that's slated to go down. That was, of course, originally supposed to be a recap of the spring sports for Cal. That's obviously not going to be the case now, as an inadvertent 2 to 3 month summer hibernation took place, and instead, obviously, that will be used as well to look over Cal football, how things go with the home opener, what they have on tap following that game, between that and the next show after that, and any other Cal sports course that goes on with that. So that's what's going on with that and things on our end. And as far as what you can look forward to as the night rolls on here with this edition of AsFAnRAdio. So we'll go ahead and, of course, begin tonight's edition of the show with what's been going down as far as things with Howard Terminal since the last time we came at you here on the show. Not really much coming out of the city's end on things, as obviously the city council has been in a recess for the last couple of weeks. Of course, that will be wrapping up here shortly. The city, of course, has meetings coming up eventually. Obviously, the A's want to see the city's binding vote happen sometime near the end of September. Many of us, of course, out there are wondering if that will be the case, or if a more realistic possibility is sometime in October, maybe even November, which, kind of is being looked at as really the unofficial hard deadline in regards to this. Some of the stuff that, of course, has gone down or come out since we last came at you was a couple weeks ago. Dave Cobble, of course, was on A's Cast talking about some of the stuff that went down, BCDC vote, upcoming lawsuits and stuff like that, and pretty much where things stood. And basically he kind of alluded to that things with the CBA have technically or, theoretically have been agreed on, not officially, kind of, I guess, at this point, but, things with that supposedly have been sorted out. Other issues as well have been taken care of, and really the only thing left that's kind of really the hurdle at this point is the infrastructure funding for the project, which, of course, people got to remember there's a difference between construction funds and infrastructure funds. Obviously, the A's are going to privately finance the stadium and the development they're going to build around that. When it comes to infrastructure, that's obviously fixing your roads or sidewalks, on-ramps or off-ramps on the freeway, stuff like that in the area near there, which, let's be real, if you've been down Jacqueline Square at any point in recent memory, the reality is with or without that project, that area is in long overdue need of some infrastructure upgrades down there. Obviously, the city's been trying to put in for a whole bunch of grants that are becoming available for various infrastructure projects across the country, kind of a little bit of a bidding war with that. Vice President Harris was in town not too long ago discussing stuff with Libby Schaaf. Some are suspecting and wondering if the ballpark was brought up amongst that, and trying to get some of these some of these grants heading the city's way to help close the gap, or fully even close the gap on that infrastructure funding for the roads and stuff around the Howard Terminal site. And heard talk here and there of one coming out there. The port obviously got one. Has mentioned that some of that money will probably end up getting put into the project at some point. Obviously, they're going to use the port's going to use the majority of that money to upgrade stuff in and around the port. But let's be real. The port has done real estate related stuff before, so it wouldn't be surprising if they do throw a little something towards that infrastructure funding to help close the gap on there. But the city again is applying for stuff. There's word of one grant out there that they have applied for that they potentially may have gotten. Boss has a little bit more details on this, but it wouldn't be available until sometime in November. So city's still continuing to do that, and pretty much that's, according to the A's, is the last thing that needs to be resolved is the infrastructure funding gap. Will be interesting to see if really things have been finalized or not with a CBA, because you have heard talks that supposedly talks broke off with the CBA and the group that was part of the steering committee involved with that in July. You're going to have to obviously double check on that stuff as well with our sources out there. It's been a while since I've hit them up with everything going on my end and whatnot. And, haven't seen really anything from the city contesting that really that much. You have, of course, certain individuals out there that I won't name, but you know who I'm talking about, that have contested that, try to throw things out there. And, another situation as well that are, have had people wondering about how things are going to sway. And this is the fact that Taj Tasimobi, who was part of the A's front office for the last several years as part of efforts to help get the fans involved in other aspects of things with the stadium project, is now no longer with the team. Some out there speculating that he was let go because of apparent unauthorized trips that he made. You have folks within the A's organization and sources out there that we know that are completely saying the exact opposite. It was not that at all. It was other things that went down that ultimately led to Taj leaving, and you've gotten some folks out there that are wondering if Taj's departure will affect this at all. I don't see it affecting it. Boss doesn't see it affecting it, and a lot of individuals we've talked to out there kind of really feel the same at that point. I am appreciative of what he was doing early on to help, out with fan involvement and getting the fans involved in the early going prior to the pandemic, of helping push things forward with getting, support for this project going. But, just sometimes things don't work out and you end up having to move on to different things, or looking at things in one direction. The employer isn't looking at things that way, or certain other stuff, whatever it is. Ultimately, it was at a point where the A's and Taj felt it was time to move in opposite directions, and that's where it stands with that. So again, myself, Boss, others don't see that affecting things. On the lawsuit front, because don't forget, it's not only binding vote season that we're sitting around waiting on. It's also lawsuit season, as of course. You have the railroad lawsuits that were filed prior to the deadline to get that all in once the EIR was certified. The East Oakland Stadium Alliance threw in one as well for initially 3 total. Then you have a 4th one that apparently got filed after the deadline that I first only heard about a couple of weeks ago, and had me scratch my head like, really? You're going to let this in after the deadline? Pretty much what apparently they ended up doing with all that is they had a hearing recently. I'm just trying to go back through our notes and obviously messages that I got saved here on the computer from all the various people we've been keeping in contact with when we check in on things with all this stuff. Just give me a second here to pull this stuff up. Hearing was back on just a little over a week ago, I believe. Friday the 17th is what I'm looking at here. Pretty much you only had a couple individuals out there. One, of course, that a lot of folks just don't like listening to, and Trash Night. The other one, of course, being Zenny Abraham, who's providing audio, and you all know how we feel about both those individuals out there, but I'm not even going to get into things with that. But basically, Judge had a meeting in regards with that. As mentioned, they've basically combined all the lawsuits into one hearing, pretty much, or one set of hearings that they're going to do this. So they're hearing everything with all of those pretty much at one time, and Judge heard arguments from pretty much both sides on this. The individuals that are suing made their case in regards to everything. The A's, the city, and those involved with the EIR and everything made their case, pointed out a whole bunch of things, and no decision was basically made on that. There was supposed to be a tentative ruling, I guess, to come at the end of this week, based on the information I'm seeing here from conversations between myself, Boss, and others out there. And I think basically that was to see if CBE, who was the lawsuit that was filed after the after the deadline happened, in regards with that, can see what happened with that. And of course, we'll have more info on that as it becomes available. Really going to be interesting to see ultimately who this judge rules in favor of, and regardless who he rules in favor of, expect the losing end to appeal regardless what happens. So definitely, if the opposition ends up losing, they will appeal, and I'm pretty sure that if the A's and the city somehow loses, they'll end up appealing it as well. I've always felt that as far as the railroad lawsuits, those are ultimately something that can be settled. Maybe even now, or as an appeal process continues to goes on, I think those should be settled. The East Oakland Stadium Alliance lawsuit, I've always felt that should be tossed because it's garbage, it's BS, it's full of holes. Not to mention the fact, but when they filed that, they had incorrect dates on there, so it should have been tossed for inaccurate information alone on that. God, it would have been great to hear my late godfather rip that lawsuit filing apart because of the screw up there. And the same goes for this latest one that was filed after the deadline. It should be tossed just on those grounds. You missed the deadline. That's your fault. You should have had your stuff turned in sooner with that. So pretty much that's where we stand with things. There's going to be a meeting. I forgot the exact date coming up sometime next month. I'll definitely make sure between now and next week's show to get that information, or obviously if we get that info before next week's show, I'll throw it up on the show's Facebook and Twitter pages. And I believe that meeting is supposed to be a public meeting where you can actually go over there to the City Hall in person for the first time in who knows how long it's been since the the last time you've been able to do that. For me, it was a meeting that the A's front office dragged myself and a few others to probably at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic happened. It was the last time I remember being in City Hall for anything, either related to the ballpark project or just going there inside of there for stuff in general. So that's pretty much where we stand at this point in time. Obviously, if anything goes down between now or, by now, I mean, obviously, once I wrap up here, unless Boss sees something out there that needs to be thrown out while I'm running my mouth here on the broadcast tonight. Between now and the next time we come at you, obviously, we'll throw stuff out there. Y'all, of course, know already who to go to outside of us as well to get up-to-date and accurate information and not just opinion pieces that are tried to be passed off as facts. And again, you know who those individuals are that are we referring to on there. So that is where we, again, stand in the latest with things with the Howard Terminal project. One other thing I wanted to touch bases on before we go ahead and take our first break of the night here in our broadcast is 2023 schedule is already out for not just the Oakland Athletics, but for all of Major League Baseball's professional franchises. Seems like just like with Halloween, Christmas, and the holidays that you normally have at the tail end of the year, it seems like these schedule releases come out earlier and earlier every year. Several years ago, you usually didn't see these until maybe the end of the season, beginning of the postseason, or just right after the postseason got over with. Now here we are, just barely a week plus left in the month of August, and you're already seeing what the schedule will look like in regards to 2023. And again, this is not just the schedule for the Oakland Athletics, but this is the schedule, the schedules for all 30 Major League Baseball franchises. And things are going to be a little bit different than what you have been accustomed to these last several years. The 2023 schedule released by Major League Baseball today, excuse me here as things are all moving around on my screen, might look the same in some ways. There are still 162 games per team, spread from spring to fall with a brief pause for the All-Star break, and October is always the goal. But make no mistake, the new, more balanced 2023 schedule will begin with opening day on March 30th is a massive change for the sport. No longer is each team's slate significantly skewed towards division opponents. Instead, the schedule will feature more variety. For the first time in modern MLB history, every team will play every other team at some point. This altered schedule structure will have significant effects on the postseason and the product. So let's dive into the specifications of this schedule change by answering questions you might have about it. Why has MLB moved to a balanced schedule? With the with the postseason format having already been expanded in 2022 to include 3 wildcard spots in each league, it is more important for teams across each league to play more similar schedules. All wins and losses are counted the same, so a more balanced schedule convincingly limits the advantage a team from a weak division has over a team from a deep division in the wild card race. But there's also entertainment value to having all teams face each other at least once, as opposed to loading up the schedule of division matchups. That means 29 fan bases getting to watch their clubs face Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Mookie Betts, and the other great stars of the sport. This new format creates consistent opponent matchups as clubs compete for postseason berths, MLB Chief of Operations and Strategy Officer Chris Marnick said in a release. Particularly in the recent expanded wildcard round, additionally, this fan-friendly format provides fans with the opportunity to see more opponent matchups with a particular focus on dramaticality, expanding our most exciting interleague matchups and offering more national exposure to the star players throughout our game. Is the 2023 schedule truly balanced? Not in the strictest sense, no. Teams will play more series against individual division opponents than any other individual opponent from another division, but the schedule is nowhere near as weighted towards division play as it was previously. How many games will each team play against division opponents? Each team will play 52 games against division opponents, decreased from 76 under the previous schedule structure. This will include 13 games across 4 total series against each division opponent, decreased from 19 across 6 series. That's 7 home games and 6 away, or vice versa, against each opponent for a total of 26 home games and 26 away games. How many games will each team play against non-division league opponents? Each team will play 64 interleague games, 32 home and 32 away, decreased from 66. Teams will play 6 games against 6 league opponents and 7 games against 4 other league opponents. This is the reverse of the previous format in which teams played 6 games against 4 league opponents and 7 games against 6 league opponents. How many interleague games will each team play? This is the biggest change, with 46 total interleague games for each team, AL versus NL and vice versa, an increase from 20. Teams will play a home-and-home series, 4 games total, against their national interleague rivals, Yankees versus Mets, Dodgers versus Angels, Cubs versus White Sox, A's versus Giants, and etc. in regards to that. And another 42 against other interleague opponents, including 7 series for a total of 21 games at home and 7 series, a total of 21 games on the road. How long was the schedule unbalanced? The unbalanced schedule we are familiar with today was first introduced back in 2001. That year, teams began playing anywhere from 16 to 20 home games against each division rival. Prior to that, the AL had played under a more balanced schedule since its 1977 expansion from 12 to 14 teams, while the NL had played under a more balanced schedule since its 1993 expansion from 12 to 14 teams. Interleague play, however, has never been balanced the way it will be with the 2023 schedule. What impact will the balanced schedule have? Though the travel will be a quite bit different under the more balanced schedule, and rescheduling postponements against non-divisional opponents can be more challenging, this arrangement should be a fairer one in terms of settling both division and wildcard races. As a result of the adjusted schedule, teams within the same division and within the same league will have more common opponents. The new schedule will also impact how front offices approach roster construction. Yeah, we'll have to see if that impacts the A's or not in regards to that. With fewer division games, there might be less emphasis on acquisitions targeted specifically because of how they match up with particular division rivals or how they play in particular ballparks within the division. What are some of the notable aspects of the 2023 schedule? The 2023 All-Star Game presented by MasterCard will be held on July 11th at T-Mobile Park, the first Midsummer Classic in Seattle since 2001. If weather permits, opening day on March 30th will be the first in which every MLB team opens on the same day since 1968. All 30 clubs are also scheduled to be in action on the 4th of July. The Cardinals and Cubs will play a 2-game series in London, at London Stadium on June 24th to the 25th as part of the MLB World Tour, which will bring MLB teams and players to the league's global base over the next 4 seasons. The Phillies and the Nationals will meet in the 2023 Little League Classic at Muncie Bank Ballpark at historic Bauman Field in Williamsport, Pennsylvania on August 20th. And in case you all are all wondering how come there's no mention of a Field of Dreams game on there. That's because there won't be one next year due to the fact that there's plans for construction to finally create the sports complex that they've been wanting to do around the Field of Dreams site for several years now at this point. It was an idea that was being kicked around when I went to that site back in 2004. So that's basically kind of what you have to look forward to as far as things go with the 2023 schedule across Major League Baseball. And, of course, as mentioned, all 30 teams' schedules being released today, so may as well obviously real quickly here take a look at how things are shaping up for what your Oakland Athletics will be doing in the 2023 season. Unfortunately, they'll be opening up against an opponent that it seems like they've been opening up against at home forever, an opponent they were supposed to open up against this year, but obviously that ended up not happening with the opening of the season getting pushed back due to the lockout, delaying spring training, and a whole bunch of other things. Real quickly here is I want to make sure I don't get too far ahead of myself. But the 2023 schedule obviously is out for the A's. They will open up at home in 2023, and they will open up against the Anaheim Angels for a 3-game series to start things off on March the 30th. The first entire home series will, of course, include 3 matchups against those Anaheim Angels, and then they will close out what will basically be a 6-game homestand against the Cleveland Guardians to begin things on the 2023 season. They will end the year on the road with 6 road games, 3 of those games being at Minnesota, and they will close out the 2023 season playing against the very team that they're opening up next season against, and that's, of course, they will end things down in Anaheim against the Angels. Obviously, some of the intriguing matchups that you're going to have, they're going to go down over the course of next season, as the Mets are going to come into Oakland pretty early on in the schedule, 3 games very early, or basically not early, kind of like the middle of April, looking like here on my end, looking at other intriguing matchups that we're going to have going down as well. Let's see here, looking at the schedule. God, I wish I would have blown this up a little bit more, just see what's going on. I can see that Slam Diego will be coming down near the end of the year, and then obviously, a whole bunch of road games. It was just, this is something myself and Boss have talked about over the years, and kind of something else that we've talked with other baseball fans out there, other A's fans, other fans of other teams, and kind of, in my opinion, long overdue that the league goes to a schedule like that. I think it's going to create some interesting and intriguing matchups and offer fan bases the opportunity to see players and teams that they normally would not get to see unless it's part of that rotation that was set up for interleague play that basically will end after this year that we've been accustomed to the last couple of years, or basically teams that you wouldn't be able to see unless you went on a road trip yourself, or you made a trip down to the Grapefruit League or the Cactus League during spring training to check those squads out beforehand. This is going to give an opportunity for, not just A's fans, obviously, to see teams and players that we normally haven't seen regularly over the years. But, obviously the transplants out here that are fans of the other 29 MLB teams will have their opportunities to come out to the ballpark and check things out. Now, how will the A's look come next year? Who knows? Is it going to resemble this year? Is there going to be some improvement? We'll have to obviously wait and see as we get closer to that. And the reality is, how much are folks like myself and others going to be into it, depending on how things play out with the stadium situation? That's obviously a question as well that's going to have to be resolved one way or another at some point. But hey, that's what you have to look forward to in 2023, as things are going to get switched up and all 30 teams are finally going to play each other for the first time ever. And speaking of which, by the way, that's what the fan question for this edition of A's Fan Radio happens to be centered around. So if you haven't had a chance to do so since the post first went up at 5 o'clock, or since the repost or retweet, depending on if you're on either Facebook or Twitter, when it went up at 8:05 p.m. Go ahead and right now make your way over to either facebook.com/AsFanRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter, and submit your responses beginning now for the fan question of the night for show number 316. We, of course, always try to throw out a fan question each edition of the show, and, of course, I read off all the responses, regardless if it's one or many that end up coming my way. I end up reading those during the final segment of each show's broadcast. So, again, it's been up since 5 o'clock. The retweet went out not too long ago, just a little after 8 o'clock. Usually 8:05 is when I have the repost go out. So if you haven't had a chance to do so, again, go get in your response to the fan question of the night, which is, we want to hear your thoughts on the new schedule format that MLB will be using starting next season. And, of course, I just went over it, but in case you miss out on that, the link is there for y'all to go over basically the same information that I just read off to y'all when I was blabbling about about that here in a bit. So again, fan question of the night, your thoughts on the format that MLB is going to start using for the 2023 season. Again, you can submit those responses at either facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter. On that note, we're going to go ahead and take our first break of the night here on show number 316 of A's Fan Radio. We come back, we will go ahead and take a look at what your Oakland Athletics have been up to since we last came at you here on the show, as the previous 2 of the last 3 weeks will be the short version. Of course, you should be familiar with that line if any of y'all out there are familiar with or have seen Spaceballs. And then, of course, we will do our traditional recapping of games by taking a look at what happened over the course of the last week with your Oakland Athletics. And, of course, we got a whole lot more coming at you on this broadcast before the night is over with. Don't go anywhere, folks. Show number 316 of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. We'll be right back at you in a bit. You are listening to A's Fan Radio. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003, and coming off of a unscheduled 3-week hiatus, the last of those 3 weeks, of course, being because yours truly is currently COVID positive at the moment, but we're finally right back here at you on twitch.tv/AsFanRadio. Welcome back, of course, to show number 316 of A's Fan Radio. It is, of course, the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown coming at you solo for this edition of AFR, as the main man, the boss man, is unable to join me for tonight's broadcast, as there's a family situation that's been ongoing since the beginning of the week that is still ongoing at the moment that needs his attention and that he's addressing at this point of time. So we hope to see him, of course, back here on next week's edition of the show. And, of course, obviously, you'll see him throw out stuff out there on Twitter. If you've been following us on Twitter or Facebook long enough, you should be able to tell the difference between when I post something out there and when Boss is putting something out there for everyone to take a look at. And he was doing it right before we started the show, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's out there tweeting or retweeting Roots updates over onto our social media page while I'm in the middle of blabbing away with things here in regards to the Oakland Athletics, the latest with Howard Terminal, and whatever the hell else comes to mind that I feel like talking about on tonight's edition of the show. So it's great to be back here again. Missed y'all over the last couple of weeks. Obviously was ordered by not just my wife, but my mom and the rest of my family to take it easy after I tested positive last Saturday. Almost basically got threatened with an ass beating from my mom if I did not take the night off from doing the show last week, push back, and obviously rest up. And, hey, y'all should know out there, regardless of your age, you listen to mom. Otherwise, mom beats her ass. So I abided and obliged by what my mom said, and that's why we're here at you right here, right now, with kind of, I guess, what's about to be a 3-week recap here, as we're basically about to do the whole recap of what the A's been up to here in one segment here on tonight's broadcast. Though the reality is the first 2 of the last 3 weeks we did, like I said, to put in Spaceball terms, will be the short version, so that way we're not elongating what the team has been up to over the last couple of weeks. And it's been pretty much, unfortunately, more of the same, as it's been for the entirety of what yours truly back in November predicted and labeled as the hashtag rooted in straight donkey ass season for our beloved green and gold. Last time, of course, we came at you prior to tonight was show number 315, which was our trade deadline edition. That went down back on Friday, April the 5th. That, of course, was originally scheduled to go down on the 4th, but we ended up shuffling things around because of stuff going on in Bosses then and something that came up last minute with my end of things as well. So, again, last show went down on August 5th. Here, of course, is the short version of what has happened since we last came at you before we pick up with things on August the 19th. Some of the games, of course, that came at you since the last time we came at you here on the show is back on August 6th and the 7th. The A's played a quick little 2-game set against the San Francisco Giants here at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, just down the road from Dub 6 Studios. It was, of course, the Oakland half of the Battle of the Bay series for the 2022 season. Of course, you all forgot they had the first 2 games in San Francisco early in the year. The A's and the Giants split those 2 games over in the city. That would not be the case for these 2 games here in Oakland, as the A's would drop the first game of that 2-game contest on Saturday the 6th by the final of 7-3, and they would ultimately get swept by the Giants in that 2-game series by the final of 6-4 on Sunday, August the 7th. And the Giants, of course, winning the Bay Bridge series this year 3-1, and they ended up with the Bridge Trophy for this season. After that, the A's would close out a 5-game homestand with 3 games against the Anaheim Angels. That series, of course, starting on Monday, August the 8th. That came to a close on Wednesday, August the 10th. The Angels would end up sweeping your green and gold in that 3-game set, as the A's would lose the first contest on August the 8th by the final of 1-0. They would also lose the second game of the series on Tuesday, August the 9th by the final of 5-1. And then they would, of course, get swept in the finale of that 3-game series, losing by the final of 5-4. They would then have an off day on Thursday, August the 11th, before they would begin their most recent road trip before coming back into town to the homestand that we'll be breaking down individually game by game here in a short little bit. And it seems like for damn near the last almost month, the A's either played in Texas against the Texas teams, or the Texas teams were here playing against us. And again, that was basically what the last road trip was yet another trip to the Lone Star State. 7 games total in Texas from the 12th through the 18th. The first 3 games of that 7-game road trip were in Houston at Minute Maid Park against the Astros. The A's would get swept for the 3rd straight series. When that one was all said and done, they would drop the opener in Houston on Friday, April the 12th by the final of 7-5, get shut out in Game 2 on Saturday, August the 13th by the final of 8-0, and then ultimately drop the finale in Houston on August the 14th by the final of 6-3. After that, they would head on into Arlington for a 4-game set at Globe Life Park with the Texas Rangers. They would continue on that losing skid that started back during the Giants series back here at home by losing the first game of that 4-game series to the Rangers by the final of 2-1. They would then they would then end up winning the middle 2 games of that 4-game series, as they would take Game 2 on August 16th by the final of 5-1. It would also see a W get put on the board by your Oakland Athletics on Wednesday, August the 17th, when they would defeat Texas by the final of 7-2. The A's ultimately, though, would end up dropping the 4th and final game of that 4-game set in Arlington, but would end the series at least with a split when it was all said and done, as the Rangers would take that finale of that series on August the 18th by the final of 10-3. And that, of course, would lead into the lead in, of course, to the series that we're about to break down right here, right now. The first of 2 series that we'll actually be recapping individually, game by game, on this broadcast, which basically will cover the first 2 series of this current homestand that your Oakland Athletics are on right now. They, of course, had an they didn't have an off day after this things began. So we're going to go ahead and piggyback, obviously, now to last Friday, August the 19th, the day after the A's finished off a split of a 4-game series in Arlington against the Rangers, as they, of course, would begin the homestand against a team that has basically had their number the last several years, regardless of how that opponent has performed individually and overall as a team themselves. Last several years, they've somehow, some way, regardless if it was here or up in the 206, have found a way to basically consistently beat the ever-loving piss out of us. And I'm, of course, talking about the beloved baseball team of our good friend Dre in the 206, the Seattle Mariners coming into town for a 3-game set that again began last Friday, August the 19th. Mariners in the middle of the wild card chase, by the way. So not going to lie, I'm kind of happy to see. For our boy Dre's sake, the Mariners making a playoff push, first time in hell long. They could potentially get into the postseason. I want to say the last time they went was 2001 when they won all those, that 116 games or whatever it was, and then ended up getting bounced in the first round, unfortunately, is what they were dished after that, and they have been back since then. But, who knows? That could possibly end up changing for, the squad up there in the 206. And Dre's happy for it. He sees it. He's happy to see it, especially after the fact that, the Mariners got off to a horrid start, which shockingly, was a shocker to us. We, here at the show thought the Mariners were actually going to play like how they're playing now over the course of the whole season. Dre, pretty much saw the garbage at the beginning of the year as what was going to happen, but definitely is enjoying the turnaround that they have made as of late. Here's how things went down in the first of these 3 games that went down over this past weekend in Oakland between your Oakland Athletics and the Seattle Mariners. Again, Game 1 taking place last Friday, August the 19th at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Seattle would score first in that contest just a little over a week ago. I should probably make sure to pull up the matchup images for y'all at home that are watching and listening along here. Sorry about that. Seattle would score first in this one as they would plant the first run of the game in the top of the first inning. That 1-run lead would be short-lived, however, as your Oakland Athletics answered back with a 2-run spot in the bottom of the first inning. It would remain a 2-1 game until the top of the 4th inning when the Mariners would take the lead with a 2-run spot of their own. Your Oakland Athletics basically would get shut out of the run column over the remaining 8 innings of this contest. Yep, another one of those games where they were able to put up runs in the first inning and not do jack diddly squat the rest of the way out. The Mariners, on the other hand, though, after they scored those 2 runs in the top of the 4th to take the lead, they would add on to that with 3 runs in the top of the 6th, 2 runs in the top of the 7th, and what would ultimately be their final 2 runs of the contest in the top of the 8th, as Seattle takes Game 1 of this 3-game series last Friday in Oakland, defeating the Athletics by the final of 10-2. Seattle 10 runs, 13 hits, 1 error. Oakland 2 runs, 6 hits, and 2 errors in that contest. Gonzalez picking up the win for the Mariners in that one as he improved to 8-12 on the year. Swervin' Cole Irvin, good friend of the show and the only active member of the A's roster to be following AsFANRAdio as far as we know at the moment, taking a rare loss at the Coliseum this year as he falls to 6-11 at that point in time in the season. Home runs in this contest, only team that hit any ding-dong doodles in this one was the Seattle Mariners, and it was two, both of those coming off the bat of Suarez to bring his total on the year up to 22 at that point. Irvin did get a quality start out of this one. He went 6 innings, gave up 6 hits, he gave up 6 runs, 5 of those runs being earned, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and of course the 2 homers that he surrendered to Suarez basically kind of bit him in the butt. In this one, Ruiz came in, pitched an inning and 2/3. He gave up 6 hits, 4 runs, half of those runs being earned, no walks and 2 strikeouts. And you had Mole pitch the final inning and a third for the A's in that contest. So unfortunately, that series and that homestand kind of starting off with the same old familiar tune that we've unfortunately gotten accustomed to with this Oakland Athletics squad in 2022, which is a team that just, they're overall horrible, with the lone bright spot shockingly being the bullpen, apparently, with this 2022 team. But we've really got them, even more accustomed to this team just doing horrendously at the Coliseum this year, which is, just odd. Normally you would think that a team would be better in its home ballpark than on the road, but that, is not the case for the Oakland Athletics in 2022. So go figure. So, no, not shocked, unfortunately, by that, but at the same time, you're a little annoyed that this whole little skid against the Mariners, regardless of the fact how good Seattle's playing now or how they've been over the last several years, you're getting a little annoyed that you just really cannot find a way somehow, some way, no matter who it's on the mound, no matter who's in the lineup, to beat these guys. That that luck would finally change for your Oakland Athletics over the course of the final 2 games of that 3-game series. We begin, of course, with Game 2 of the set with Seattle, which, of course, went down last Saturday, August the 20th. Seattle would score first in this one, kind of similarly to what happened in the first game here as well. Sorry, as I'm getting all tongue-twisted here. Run in the first and a run in the fourth to give them an early 2-0 lead through the first 4 innings of the contest. The A's would take the lead, though, with a 3-run spot in the bottom of the 5th inning. The Mariners would end up tying the game up with a single run in the top of the 8th inning. Neither team would get anything across in the 9th, so, hey, extra baseball at the Coliseum last Saturday. Seattle not able to get anything across in their half of the 10th inning. That wouldn't be the case for the Oakland Athletics, as they would score the one and only run they would need to end things in the bottom of the 10th, as they ultimately would walk off in extras last Saturday, beating the Seattle Mariners by the final of 4-3 in 10 innings. Oakland, 4 runs, 8 hits, no errors. Hey, nice to see no errors in that one for a change. It'd be nice if that happens a little bit more consistently the rest of the way out, regardless if it's the youngins out there or not, since there's obviously a whole bunch of cats that got cut or moved or whatever, which we'll get into in the transactions, because we will be going over all the transactions that have happened since the last time we came at you here at the show. Again, Oakland 4 runs, 8 hits, no errors. Seattle 3 runs, 7 hits, and 1 error in that contest last Saturday at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Dangerous Danny Jimenez picking up the W for Oakland in that one as he improved to 3-4 on the year. Castillo taking the loss for the Mariners in that one as he fell to 7-2 on the season. No home runs for the Mariners, no home runs for Oakland either in this contest. It was a game that, of course, initially saw James Kaprielian get the start on the bump for Oaktown in that one. 5 innings pitched, 3 hits given up, 2 runs surrendered, both of those runs being earned, 4 walks, 3 strikeouts, and no homers given up again. Neither team hit a home run in this contest. Puck pitched an inning, Acevedo pitched an inning as well, Jackson an inning, and Dangerous Danny pitched the final 2 innings of this contest. So Danny Jimenez, by the way, for those of you that aren't following along, obviously he didn't get a save in that contest. He got the win in that one. But leads all rookies in the AL in saves currently at the moment. So definitely going to be interesting to keep an eye on him to see if he ends up ultimately potentially locking down that closer's role going forward for the Oakland Athletics. And even if he doesn't, how he ultimately shapes up as a fixture in that A's bullpen going forward, because again, that bullpen shockingly is the one lone bright spot on the squad overall in 2022. As I alluded to, obviously, the A's would change their ways against Seattle in this one, or in this series, I should say. My bad, getting tongue-twisted on y'all again. Obviously, split at this point going into the finale this past Sunday, August the 21st. Would it be, of course, an A's win, or would Seattle end up taking the series? I kind of probably almost obviously gave away what happened, but either way, let's go ahead and see how things played out on the scoreboard in this one as the series drew to a close again last Sunday, August the 21st in Oakland. The A's would actually score first in this game, as they would score 1 run in the bottom of the first inning, and then add on to that lead with 2 runs in the bottom of the second. Seattle would finally get their first run across with a single run in the top of the third. Neither team would do anything else until the bottom of the fifth, when the A's would add on a single run. The Mariners would score what would be their final 2 runs of the contest in the top of the 7th, while the A's would add on an insurance run in the bottom of the 8th to ultimately win that contest and win the series against the Mariners. Hey, been a while since we've been able to say that one in regards to Seattle. Oakland getting the victory back on Saturday. There I go saying Saturday again. Sunday, August the 21st, defeating the Mariners by the final of 5-3. Oakland, 5 runs, 12 hits, 1 error. Well, they were hoping that they weren't going to make errors again. Ends up happening again anyway. 5 runs, 12 hits, 1 error for Oakland. 3 runs, 9 hits, and 1 error for the Mariners in the final game of that 3-game series. Haniger hitting a home run for Seattle, his 5th on the year. No one going deep for the Athletics in this one, but ultimately I guess it matters more that they had more runs on the board at the end than how many homers were hit in this one. J.P. Sears getting the start for the A's in this one. We, of course, just recently acquired him in a trade with the New York Yankees. Got the W in this one as he improved to my bad. I didn't even bother to mention the win, loss, and save. Sears got the win, improved to 5-0. Castillo got the loss, fell to 5-5. And Pruitt got his first save of the year in this one. Sears, by the way, 5 innings pitched, 6 hits given up, 1 run surrendered, that 1 run being earned, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and that 1 run, of course, coming off the lone home run him and the entire A's pitching staff allowed in this one. After those 5 innings, you had Acevedo pitch an inning, Puck pitched 2/3 of an inning, Jackson a third, Dangerous Danny a third, Mole pitched a full inning, and then Pruitt pitched the final 2 innings of that contest. So again, A's able to take 2 out of 3 against the Seattle Mariners. And again, just, I'm pretty sure that Dre's upset that his team didn't get the series win here, but hey, I feel you. Understandable, Dre, especially with how your team's turned it around and they're making a playoff push. But, hey, sorry. It's nice to see my team, especially with the way they're playing this year, sneak in and get a series win every once in a while. Like how things played out here, and especially ending a drought like that. It'll be interesting to see if the next time Seattle and Oakland lock horns, if we can actually get a streak going against them, or if the Mariners just resume beating our asses the next time we face off. After that 3-game series, of course, wrapped up with the Seattle Mariners, the A's had 3 more games to get underhand and out of the way. Let me start over with that again. After wrapping up that 3-game set with the Seattle Mariners, the A's, of course, had the middle series of basically what's a 3-team homestand that they're in the midst of currently here at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Interleague matchup for these next set of games that went down. A series that, of course, began on Monday, August 22nd, as this Miami Marlins came into town for a 3-game set. Marlins, of course, out of the NL East, team that's kind of, trying to rebuild to get back in there, though you always got to wonder if they're ever actually going to be serious about building a contending team there, or when they do get a contending team, are they actually going to keep it together, or are they going to blow it up like they did the last 2 times that they won the World Series? And to some extent, they even blew it up kind of after the last playoff run that they went on back in the shortened 2020 season. Anyway, here's what went down in the first game of this 3-game series between Oakland and Miami. That game, of course, going down on Monday, August the 22nd, right down the street here from Dub 6 Studios, down the road at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. The Marlins would get on the board first in this one as they would score the first run of the contest in the top of the 2nd inning. They would then score a 2-run spot in the top of the 3rd, and they wouldn't do anything else the rest of the way out, which was good for them, but bad for Oakland because Oakland got held to 9 goose eggs on the run end of things in this one. No runs at all. Nada. 0. None. Over the course of this full 9-inning frame as Oaktown gets shut out by Miami to open this series on Monday by the final of 3-0. Miami 3 runs, 7 hits, no errors. Oakland no runs, 3 hits, and no errors in that contest. Cabrera picking up the win for Miami as he improved to 4-1 on the year. Oler taking the loss for Oakland as he fell to 2-6 on the year. And Scott picking up his 18th save of the year for Miami in this contest. Obviously, no home runs for the A's because they didn't score any runs at all in this one. Meanwhile, there was 1 home run that was hit by Miami in this one, and that, of course, was coming off the bat of LeBlanc as he hit his 2nd homer of the 2022 season in this one. Oler went 6 innings, 5 hits given up, 3 runs surrendered, all 3 of those runs being earned, 5 walks, 2 strikeouts, 1 home run given up before you had Ruiz pitch 2 innings and Snead pitched the final frame of the contest. I don't know, man. I kind of understand the, trying to give a guy that might be in the mix potentially for the rotation next year a chance to get his feet wet at the major league level, given that it's kind of getting near the short end of things on the AAA side of things. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know what to expect out of Oler anymore. when he steps on the mound. And it seems like kind of that's the rest of the take from the rest of the fan base, too, with the takes being more often than not that it's a guaranteed L when this kid takes the mound. Love to see him turn things around, but, is he going to? Who knows? That will be wait to be seen, obviously, going forward. But just unfortunate to see that happen. But it's what you're going to see happen, unfortunately, in a season like what we have been dealing with the A's in 2022. Let's go ahead and see what went down in the second game of this 3-game series between your Oakland Athletics and the Miami Marlins. Let's see if the A's could get back onto the winning side of things and split the first 2 games of this series, or if Miami would be able to take the second game of the series and secure a series win heading into the finale that, of course, was played out earlier today. We'll get to that here in a bit, but first things first, obviously, let's see what went down last night at the ballpark in the Deep East. Miami would score first, yet again, for the second contest in a row, as they would score 1 run in the top of the 4th inning. They would then add on to that with a 4-run spot in the top of the 6th inning. Those would be the final 4 runs of the contest that the Marlins would score in this one. The A's would go a whole 8 innings without scoring anything before finally deciding, hey, let's put up 3 runs in the top of the 9th and nut tease everybody again, like we have on and off multiple times, and not just 2022, but over the past several years as well. Yes, obviously it was a team that's been notorious the last several years for walk-ups, but walk-offs, but they're also kind of notorious for being ball ticklers as well. This was yet another example of that, regardless of it being a shitty year or even in the years where they have been good, as they gave folks hope with those 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th, but it would ultimately be all for naught, as the Marlins would hold on to get the win in this one and secure a series victory after winning the first 2 games of this series. They, of course, get the victory yesterday at the Coliseum over the Athletics by the final of 5-3. Miami, 5 runs, 8 hits, no errors. Oakland, 3 runs, 8 hits, no errors in that contest last night at the Coliseum. Lopez picking up the win for Miami as he improved to 8-8 on the year. Lowe taking the loss as he fell to 3-8 on the year for Oakland in this one. And Scott picking up back-to-back saves for the Marlins. He, of course, picked up the save in the first game of the series, picks up save number 19 in yesterday's contest for Miami. Home runs in this one, again, it was the second game in a row where only one team hit a ding-dong doodle. And spoiler alert, that team was not the Oakland Athletics. It was the Miami Marlins, as Anderson hit his 5th home run of the year for Miami in that one. Lowe went 5 1/3, 3 hits given up, 2 runs surrendered, both of those runs being earned. No walks. He did have 7 punch-outs, but it got tagged for the lone home run that was given up by Oakland in this one. You had Acevedo pitch 2/3 of an inning. Payamps, who they just picked off of waivers, pitched 2 innings as well for the A's, and then Snead pitched the final inning of the contest in this one. So, as you can see, even against teams that are just as shitty, if not maybe even shittier than your Oakland Athletics, this happens in 2022, where it's bound to happen. One garbage team is going to have to take the series one way or another. Unfortunately, it, of course, is not us that takes the series. It's the Marlins that end up taking the first 2 games of the 3-game set. Now, would the Marlins end up getting the sweep, or would the A's be able to manage to salvage that final game of that 3-game series, especially given the fact on who's coming to town to close out the final 4 games of this homestand? Let's find out what happened earlier this afternoon at Rickey Henderson Field at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum, as earlier today, your Oakland Athletics and the Miami Marlins played the final game of that 3-game series. Just trying to look over here on things on the board here. The first runs of the game would be scored by your Oakland Athletics, and they would come in the bottom of the 6th inning. So both teams, pretty much you had a pitcher's duel going down through the majority of the early part of this game, as a good friend of the show, Swervin' Cole Irvin, faced off against former Oakland Athletics starter Jesus Luzardo, who actually had the A's in a no-hit bid through the early going of the game. Obviously, he ended up losing that and ended up ultimately surrendering 2 of the runs that the A's would end up getting before this contest was over with. Again, those 2 runs being scored by the A's in the bottom of the 6th inning. The Marlins would finally get on the board with 1 run in the top of the 8th, though there's some questions as to regards if that run should have even scored because of the fact that you had an at-bat where the home plate umpire blatantly on 3 pitches in a row that were clearly strikes, call them balls, and that ultimately allowed that 1 run to come across in the 8th inning. And then ultimately in the top of the 9th, Dangerous Danny left one a little too high that ended up getting blasted out of the good old confines of the Coliseum by Fortis over on the Miami side. So the game ended up tied at 2 after 1 out was recorded in the top of the 9th. Not going to really get mad at Danny over that one. I mean, yeah, you could have had a little better, location with where you put the pitch. But at the same time, that should have only been a 2-1 lead at that point, had the whole situation with those 3 strikes being called balls not happened in the previous inning ended up going down. It would have been 2-1 at that point in the top of the 9th instead of being tied up at 2-2 after that first out was recorded in the top of the 9th. The A's weren't able to get anything across in the bottom of the 9th, so we would go on to extra baseball in this one. Miami not able to get anything across in the top half of the 10th inning on their end. That wouldn't be the case for the Oakland Athletics, as ultimately, after a very wide, wild pitch right that allowed the ghost runner to get over to third base, Jackass Sky Bolt, yeah, he got the win, but still, you already know how myself and Boss feel about that knucklehead. He would end up getting the sac fly to drive in the ghost runner, and the A's would ultimately walk off and salvage the finale of this 3-game series with the Marlins, winning in extras by the final of 3-2 in 10. Oakland, 3 runs, 4 hits, no errors. Miami, 2 runs, 5 hits, and no errors in this one. A.J. Puck picking up the win for Oaktown as he improves to 3-1 on the year. Bayer getting the loss for the Marlins as he falls to 2-2 on the year. As I alluded to, it was the 3rd game in a row where only 1 team got a home run. And again, spoiler alert, that 1 team for the 3rd game in a row was not your Oakland Athletics. It was, again, the Miami Marlins as Fortis hit his 7th home run of the year, which, again, is the homer that tied the game up in the top of the 9th. Though, again, if it weren't for those bullshit calls, it would have only been a 2-1 Oakland advantage at that point. But, again, ultimately the A's were able to come through in extras and win the contest. No homers, by the way, obviously, again, for the 3rd game in a row for your Oakland Athletics. And just, again, it grinds my gears when umps do that, especially, that ump basically fucked over a win for Cole Irvin. Our good homie Cole Irvin went 7 strong innings in this contest, only gave up 3 hits, struck out a career-high 11 before it was all said and done for him. Zach Jackson came in, pitched 2/3 of an inning, and then Dangerous Danny came in to pitch an inning and a third before ultimately blowing the save in the top of the 9th. But again, not really mad at him on that. I'm blaming the ump for that one going down because, again, you actually call those pitches strikes. That run doesn't score in the top half of the 8th inning for the Marlins, and you're only looking at a 1 run coming across in the 9th off of that homer, and the game would have been over in the 9th potentially, and the A's would have won 2-1, but ultimately took extras, and the A's would end up having to win by the final of 3-2. And you got to remember, I'm an individual that kind of is still a little old school. I'm not fully sold on an automatic strike zone quite yet, but it's situations like what happened out there today with those 3 pitches that are really starting to make me lean towards having automatic strike zones, because that's just ridiculous that you blatantly miss 3 strikes in a row like that. Come on, man. You got to do better as an umpire with that. So ultimately, the A's taking 2 out of 3 to begin the homestand against the Seattle Mariners. They dropped 2 out of 3, though, against the Marlins in the middle series, but able, of course, to salvage the finale of that 3-game series, which let's hope that helps motivate them a bit, because it ain't getting any easier as far as things go, given who's coming into town for the next 4 games to close out this homestand. And we will get into that in a bit here once we come back from our next break here on the show tonight. Before we take that break, of course, obviously, want to remind everyone that there is a fan question of the night sitting out there for y'all to chime in on and get your word on in, so that way we can read those responses here on the broadcast when we get to the end of tonight's show. So if you haven't had a chance to do so yet, make your way over to either facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter to submit your responses for the fan question of the night. Look for either the post or the tweet that went up at around 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or for the quoted post or tweet that has the fan question quote tweeted or posted within it that went up at 8:05. Submit your responses, and I will, of course, read those responses during the final segment of tonight's show. We, of course, want to hear your thoughts on the new format for the schedule that MLB's implementing starting next year, where, of course, all 30 teams will end up playing each other at least one time. Again, your thoughts on the new scheduling format for MLB, you can respond to that either at facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter. We come back, we'll take a look at what the A's have on tap over the course of the next week's worth of action, and also see what moves has went down with the squad since the last time we came at you on August the 5th. Don't go anywhere, folks. We're almost done with the first half. Remember, there's still an X-rated second half to come your way. Almost done with the first half of tonight's edition of the show. We'll be right back at you here in a bit on show number 316 of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to close out the first half of tonight's broadcast. Yeah, you already know we still got that whole infamous X-rated second half of the broadcast to come your way here in a little bit, but still got some stuff to handle before we wrap up the first half of tonight's broadcast. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is show number 316 of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003. It is A's Fan Radio. It is, again, show number 316. And I am, of course, the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown, who still has accidentally knocked my headphones out of my damn ear while I'm talking to y'all. Still COVID positive at the moment. I will be retesting tomorrow in what I'm hoping, of course, is the first of 2 consecutive negative tests, so that way I can go back out into the world and socialize and talk it up with some of y'all out there. Make it out, of course, to the Cal game and the Roots game, a little doubleheader action sports-wise out in the East Bay next week. And obviously, if I still test positive, then I will continue to isolate, quarantine, do what I got to do to help not spread that crap until I'm finally negative and over it. And, of course, obviously, if you are just joining us now, Boss Man not with us tonight for this edition of the show. I have the con solo for this entire broadcast, as the Boss Man has some stuff family-related that's going on over on his end that started earlier in the week and is kind of still ongoing at the moment, that really needs his attention a little bit more than things right here at the show right now. So hopefully we'll have him back on the broadcast next week. And, of course, obviously between now and then, he'll end up tweeting out something out there. One thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention during the Howard Terminal segment is actually regards to a couple things that Boss tweeted out. And the fact that earlier in the week and apparently earlier today on his way to work, as he passed by 13th and Harrison over in downtown Oakland, ran across, what was it? I'm trying to remember. It was one of the individuals, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but an individual that's running to possibly be the next mayor of Oakland, individual that just has been completely anti-Howard Terminal, has been pushing all the lies and misinformation that the East Oakland Stadium Alliance and their allies have been trying to push on the public since jump on this project. And it's kind of funny because this individual is supposed to be running for mayor, yet he turns off the comments on his Twitter page for individuals to respond to what he's talking about. So, how does that help you out? But Boss crossing paths paths with that individual apparently over the course of the last couple of days, and basically just yelling Howard Terminal at him. So y'all probably saw us tweet out about that. If not, now you know. I believe the dude's last name's Tyler or Taylor. Forgot the first name, but y'all have been following him around. Those of you that know, obviously know who I'm referring to. If not, then just scroll through our Twitter timeline. I'm pretty sure Boss will mention it again when he ends up doing it. So that was the one little tidbit that I forgot to mention earlier in the broadcast. Let's go ahead and wrap up things here in the first half of tonight's show with obviously taking a look at what the A's have on tap between now and when we come at you with show number 317 next Thursday. At least I believe it's next Thursday. Let me look ahead at the schedule. Next Thursday, which of course is September the 1st. That'll be the next edition of the show, as long as something doesn't come up between now and then, or that night that ends up happening. Because you never know. Sometimes stuff does come up, and we have to shuffle things around with this. Last 3 weeks are a prime example of that. But you all already know we obviously try to stick to being on a regular schedule during the season, so let's hope that is the case. But tentatively, between now and the next time we come at you, tentatively next Thursday night, here's what the Oakland Athletics have on tap between now and next Thursday. As, of course, the first 4 games that they have between now and next Thursday are the final 4 home games of this current homestand that they are in the midst of at the moment. A homestand which so far has seen them take 2 out of 3 from the Mariners, and then just got done losing the first 2 games of a 3-game series to the Marlins before salvaging the finale of that 3-game series today. Not going to get any easier for the green and gold starting tomorrow as the New York Yankees come into Oakland for a 4-game series beginning tomorrow, which, of course, goes through this upcoming Sunday, the 28th. The first game of that series, again, is tomorrow night, which is why we're doing the show tonight, obviously. Game 1 tomorrow, August the 25th, 6:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, first pitch from the Coliseum. It's Cal State East Bay night, by the way, at the Yard. So any of you Cal State East Bay or Cal State Hayward, if you all choose to still call it that, alumni that want to make your way out there, go ahead, take advantage of that. They're probably something involved out there where you probably have to get special tickets to get some sort of special thing, or at least that's how it was in the past. Who knows how they're doing that anymore. So Cal State East Bay night again tomorrow. The first game of the series against New York, 6:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, first pitch for that game tomorrow. Same start time for the second game of that 4-game series against the Yankees on Friday, August 26th. That will also be a 6:40 p.m. Pacific Standard Time start. That, of course, will be yet another one of the fan-held promotions that the last dive bars have been doing out at the Coliseum this year. Is on Friday the 26th. They'll be doing Crazy George night out there at the last dive bar. So in case you missed me bring it up during the last break, make your way over to lastdivebar.com or their social media pages to get some information on the Crazy George collection they just put out. And again, them doing Crazy George night at the ballpark on the 26th. Game 3 of this 3-game series between your Oakland Athletics and the New York Yankees will go down on Saturday, August the 27th, and it will be the 3rd consecutive night game of this 4-game series, with the only difference being that first pitch will be about 37 minutes earlier than it was in the first 2 games, as Saturday's contest will be a 6:07 p.m. Pacific Standard Time start. 6:07 p.m. Pacific Standard Time start over at Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. It will be Nickelodeon night out there at the Coliseum, and afterwards there will apparently be a Nickelodeon post-game drone show. So those of you that have kids that follow whatever the hell is on Nickelodeon right now, or you knuckleheads out there that are inner children that grew up watching the stuff I watched on Nickelodeon, or Tito's generation that watched that generation's worth of Nickelodeon, you want to go take part, see what's going on with that, head out to the stadium, I guess, on Saturday the 27th. The finale of that 4-game set with the Bronx Bombers will go down on Sunday, August the 28th. That, of course, will be a 1:07 p.m. Pacific Standard Time first pitch. And also going on Sunday the 28th at the Coliseum will, of course, be the 20-game game streak reunion, as, of course, members of the 2002 team that went on a 20-game consecutive win streak over 20 years ago will be reuniting to celebrate that 20-game win streak on Sunday. Maybe the A's can somehow help christen it and shock everybody and somehow be in the midst of sweeping the Yankees come Sunday. I highly doubt it, and I'm pretty sure the rest of y'all out there highly do doubt that too. One can be hopeful, but yeah, not against this team. And I mean, it's a Yankee team that, as of late, had been struggling for the last several weeks, though kind of seems like in the last few days they finally have found their footing and are starting to go back to being that well-oiled machine that either, fortunately, if you're fans of them, or unfortunately, if you're not fans of them, they were on prior to several weeks ago. Obviously, it would be nice and hopeful to see the A's somehow maybe pull a split out of their ass in this 4-game series, but let's be real, y'all. We're most likely probably going to be swept and probably going to get blasted into oblivion over the course of this 4-game series. It is what it is. Whatever happens, happens. If you're going out there, have fun and, prayers be with you with whatever you're going to endure over the course of that 4-game series. 4 games, of course, with the Yankees, the 25th through the 28th of August, and that, of course, will close out this current homestand the Oakland Athletics are on at the moment. They then, of course, will have an off day on August the 29th before they begin a 3-game series, which will see the first 2 games close out the month of August, and the final game of that series, of course, will open up the month of September as the A's will begin a road trip that will see them begin with 3 games in the nation's capital as they will take on the Washington Nationals over in Washington, D.C. The first game of that 3-game series will be going down on Tuesday, August the 30th. That, of course, will be a 4:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time first pitch from Nationals Park in D.C. Game 2 of that 3-game series will also be a 4:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time first pitch. Game 2, of course, going down on Wednesday, August the 31st. And, of course, the finale of that 3-game series between your Oakland Athletics and the Washington Nationals will go down on the same day that we're scheduled to come at you again with the next edition of the show. Show number 317 will go down, of course, at 8 p.m. Tentatively on September the 1st. The final game of that 3-game series with the Nationals will go down that same day, but, of course, take place at 1:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Nationals, of course, are a team that are just a couple of years removed from being world champions, basically hanging out near the bottom of the NL East in 2022, and have just, pretty much torn apart that team that they had in D.C. that won that ring a few years ago. Some of it, of course, has been a teardown that they've done themselves, and others, of course, have been individuals that have moved on because of free agency over the course of that team. Anthony Rendon, Bryce Harper being the 2 big examples of that. They, of course, traded off the likes of Juan Soto recently, Max Scherzer just last season because of the struggling at the deadline, of course, last year. Pretty much the same as it was last year is the case this year for the Nationals over there in D.C. So, again, you have a situation where you're going to have 2 cellar-dwelling basement garbage teams basically play each other in the nation's capital. Really can flip a coin at this point on who's going to take this series. Let's hope that the A's can take 2 out of 3 in this one. But you never know. It could play out like the Marlins series, and the Nationals can end up taking 2 out of 3 or, God forbid, sweep the Oakland Athletics. So I'm not putting anything beyond the realm of possibility at this point when it comes to this Oakland Athletics squad in 2022. Hope for the best and pray for the best that they win the series in Washington, but be prepared for that to not be the case, even with how the Nationals are in 2022. And that's pretty much how things currently are looking at this point in time between now and next week for your Oakland Athletics. So 4 against the Yankees here at home to close out the homestand, and then 3 in D.C., 2, of course, to close out the month of August, and 1 to open up the month of September, in the nation's capital. And, of course, that 3-game series being the first series in a road trip that your Oakland Athletics will embark on. Won't see them back home at the Coliseum until Tuesday, August the 6th. And, of course, we'll touch bases on who they'll be facing at that point in time when we, of course, do next week's edition of the show. Let's go ahead and real quickly here. Well, not real quickly. I'd like it to obviously be quickly, but as you all know that have been following things, I'm pretty much at the mercy of how long it takes the interweb on my end to load the pages I'm looking at. Let's go ahead and take a look at the most recent roster transactions that our beloved Major League franchise has made, and we're going to go ahead and obviously take a look at what's went down for your Oakland Athletics on the roster transaction end, going back basically to when we last came at y'all here on the show. We'll pick up things on the 7th because I wanted to say, if I remember correctly, we went over all the moves that went down on August the 5th. I almost said September the 5th. Sorry about that. So, yeah, we'll begin with transactions that went down since the last show, picking up with things on August the 7th, where the A's made three moves back on the 7th of August as they optioned third baseman Jermis Garcia to the Las Vegas Aviators, recalled right-handed pitcher Adrian Martinez from Las Vegas, and sent right-handed pitcher Waddleson Charas outright to the Midland Rockhounds. August the 8th would see them recall right-handed pitcher Domingo Tapia from Las Vegas, option right-handed pitcher Adrian Martinez to Las Vegas, and select the contract Wait, my bad. I get a little ahead of myself. Two moves on August the 8th. The move that I was about to get off the top of my tongue that I thought was on the 8th wasn't. That was on the 10th. It was amongst a bunch of moves that the A's made on August the 10th. August the 10th would see the A's select the contract of outfielder Cal Stevenson from Las Vegas, recall left-handed pitcher J.P. Sears from Las Vegas, place right-handed pitcher Paul Blackburn on the 15-day IL, retroactive to August 5th with a right middle finger inflammation issue. They, of course, activated Cal Stevenson after selecting his contract. The A's, of course, also on August the 10th designated shortstop Jed Lowry for assignment. 1 day later, only one move, that move being on August the 11th, would see the A's release Jed Lowry as they literally DFA'd him 1 day, released him the next day. And Jed Lowry's tenure, at least this go-around, with the A's has come to an end. Will there be another one? Who the hell knows? Be interesting to see if anybody picks him up between now and then. I don't think anybody has yet at this point in time. So who knows if Father Time is going to have one more go around with somebody, or if Jed is done as far as things go with a Major League Baseball player. We'll have to wait and see, I guess, with that one. One move going down on August 13th, and that is when the A's, of course, recalled Zach Lowe from Las Vegas. On the 16th, they made another flurry of moves around their rosters, as, of course, they selected the contract of catcher Shea Langoliers, their top prospect, being brought up to the Major League team just a little over a week ago. They also recalled first baseman David McKinnon from Las Vegas, sent right-handed pitcher Brent Honeywell Jr. on a rehab assignment to Stockton, placed center fielder Ramon Lariano on the 10-day IL, retroactive to the 15th with a strained left oblique, and then the last move they, of course, made on August 16th was releasing right fielder Stephen Piscotty. Piscotty, of course, was a part of 316 wins that the A's had during his time with the squad from 2008 up until just a little over a week ago. Very unfortunate that his time with the A's has come to an end. It was great to see him come here, an individual that grew up as an A's fan. Obviously was drafted by the Cardinals, came up in their organization, and came up with the St. Louis Cardinals before ultimately being traded to the Oakland A's, so that way he could be out here with his family to help take care of his late mother, who had ALS and ultimately, unfortunately, passed away from ALS. But Steven's time with the A's coming to an end, as it's clear as day that it seems like pretty much the rest of the way going forward we have what pretty much is going to be a youth movement yet again going down with the green and gold over at 7,000 Coliseum Way. One lone move going down on a couple moves going down on August the 17th, as Sheldon Noisy was brought back up from Las Vegas, and yet another veteran getting released from the squad, as shortstop Elvis Andrus was cut loose by the A's on the 17th. He, of course, not too long afterwards, ended up signing a deal with the Chicago White Sox, so he is in the South Side now, and hey, at least he's in the middle of a potential playoff race with that team now the rest of the way out. I'm not too upset about letting Elvis go. The reality is he never really was able, in my eyes, to get back to the playing level that he was known for when he initially came up with the Texas Rangers. I know ultimately we kind of, didn't really lose anything, because we kind of did lose something. We ultimately gave up Jonah Heim, which ultimately is, I guess, the one regret I have about that situation. Can't really get upset about losing Chris Davis at that point in time because Chris was unfortunately kind of trending downwards as a result of the injuries that he had during the 2020 season that affected his playing time and whatnot. Chris obviously came back and is in the midst right now of trying to get his career back on track. But, I wasn't really impressed personally by Elvis Andrus. I'm being real with y'all, and I'm pretty sure that Boss and there's a few others out there too that I'm pretty sure could emphasize and say the same thing. Ultimately, the only thing that pisses me off at the end of the day with that is it cost us a decent catcher in Jonah Heim, who's having decent numbers in the seasons now with the Texas Rangers. So our loss, the Rangers game, I guess, unfortunately, in regards to that one. Anyway, let's go ahead and go back to seeing what the most recent transactions were for your Oakland Athletics before I get all sidetracked and crapped. On the 19th of August, the A's selected the contract of right-handed pitcher Norge Ruiz from Las Vegas and then optioned right-handed pitcher Domingo Tapia to Las Vegas. On the 20th, the A's claimed right-handed pitcher Joel Payamps off waivers from the Kansas City Royals and then transferred Paul Blackburn from the 15-day IL to the 60-day IL. On the 22nd, they activated right-handed pitcher Joel Payamps, who again they just recently acquired off of waivers from the Kansas City Royals. The A's then designated right-handed pitcher Austin Pruitt for assignment, sent right-handed pitcher Brent Hawley. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The Austin Pruitt DFA going down on the 22nd. The 23rd would see the A's send right-handed pitcher Brent Honeywell Jr. on a rehab assignment to the Las Vegas Aviators. And then the most recent transaction that your A's made went down today, one lone one, as the A's claimed right-handed pitcher Tyler Cyr, C-Y-R, off of waivers from the Philadelphia Phillies. And that concludes this show's edition of the latest transactions for your Oakland Athletics. Whew, a little bit of a long one there, and already an hour and a half in, and we're just now done with the first half of tonight's show. 1 hour and a half in, and who knows how long the X-rated second half is going to go. So who knows? You might be in for 2+ hour show tonight. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, with that one. Quick reminder, there is a fan question of the night sitting out there if y'all haven't had a chance to respond to it yet. So if you haven't yet gotten in a response to that, Facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio is where you can find that fan question. Look for either the post or tweet that went up at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or the quoted post or tweets that have it on there that went up at 8:05 p.m. Follow the directions, submit your responses, and I, of course, will read the responses that y'all put in during the final segment of tonight's show. We want to hear your thoughts on the new schedule format that MLB is going to use starting next season where, hey, all 30 teams are going to play each other at least once. And if you need more info on that, in case you missed me talking about it at the beginning of the show, there is a link right there that gives you all the details that I went over when I discussed that. So that is the fan question tonight. Again, Facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio to get in those responses. On that note, that concludes the first half of tonight's broadcast. We come back for the infamous X-rated second half of the show. We will go ahead and take a look at the current standings around Major League Baseball, take a look at the updated 30 prospects list for your Oakland Athletics, and of course, before we close out things and I read your responses and give you all my final thoughts of the night, we'll of course take a look at what the Oakland Roots have been up to since the last time we checked in with you. Fire up that medical research, go ahead and go grab a cold one, whatever you do when the 7th inning stretch smacks you all upside the head, because that's where we're heading right now. We will catch you on the flip side of the 7th inning stretch for the infamous X-rated second half of show number 316 of A's Fan Radio here in a bit. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to what we historically refer to here on this broadcast as our infamous X-rated second half of the broadcast. Though in recent years, especially during the 9 years that the dynamic duo have been together, and obviously at other various points throughout the 19-year history that the show has been on the air over various different broadcasting formats. We've sometimes been notorious to turn the whole broadcast into a X-rated broadcast. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I'm talking about, obviously, our sometimes colorful use of language that myself, the boss man, and the other cast members have used on and off over the years here on your show, or our show, I should say. Obviously, in more recent years, we tried to tone it down a wee little bit, and obviously only bust out the cuss words if there's some meaning or some reasoning behind it. But yeah, we still slip every now and then, which is the one advantage I like about doing a show on my own, because obviously when the day comes that I go over to the mainstream side, I'm going to have to watch with that, or the FCC is going to smack me upside the head. Welcome back to the infamous X-rated second half of show number 316 of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, which are, of course, still hashtag rooted in straight donkey ass in 2022. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003. It is, of course, A's Fan Radio as we get ready to get the back half, the infamous X-rated second half of tonight's broadcast underway. The legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown solo on the con tonight for this edition of the broadcast, as the main man, the boss man, has some family-related matters that he's been dealing with for the majority of the week and are still ongoing at the moment that are in need of his attention a little bit more than tonight's broadcast. So we'll, of course, catch him here hopefully on the next edition of the show. And, of course, obviously between now and then he'll say a word or several, I'm pretty sure, between now and next week's broadcast over on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Let's go ahead and get things underway here in the infamous X-rated second half of tonight's broadcast, the way we normally do when we do our broadcasts during the baseball season, and that's by taking a look at the current standings around Major League Baseball. And obviously, since we are in the late portion of the dog days of August, if you didn't follow along on the last show, or I think the couple shows obviously after the All-Star break, we have been taking a look at what the wild card standings look like as well. So it's obviously going to be the divisional standings and the wild card standings as they look right now that we'll be taking a look at here on this edition of the show, and pretty much the rest of the way out over the course of the rest of the 2022 season as we take a look at the standings on future broadcasts between now and when the season ends during the early week of October. Anyway, as always, we go ahead and when we do the standings on the show, start off in the American League, because that's the league that the A's have called home since 1901. And we always, of course, start off in the A's division that they have been in for several decades now, or at least since they moved out to the West, the AL West. And, of course, current standings right here, right now, as they look right here, right now, via MLB.com. The Houston Astros are still in the driver's seat of the AL West with a record of 80-45 at the moment. The Seattle Mariners, who, of course, just dropped 2 out of 3 for the first time in who knows how long, losing a series against the A's, regardless if it's in Oakland or Seattle. Still in second place and still obviously competing for a wild card spot at the moment. Seattle's currently 67-57 in that second spot in the division. The Texas Rangers are in the third spot at the moment with the reverse record of the Seattle Mariners. Texas is 57-67. The Anaheim Angels are in fourth right now with a record of 52-72. And your Oakland Athletics are still the cellar dwellers, unfortunately, in the AL West with a record of 46-79. Still kind of on pace, maybe, to lose 100 games before the year's over. We'll have to ultimately wait and see if that's still ends up being the case. Obviously, I still would like to jump Anaheim, especially with the stuff going on down there with the Angels at the moment. In case you missed out on it, yes, I will be touching on that whole situation with Moreno and the future of the Angels and selling the team and all that. I haven't talked about it yet. I'm saving it for as part of my final thought on tonight's show. So if you're wondering if I've talked about that yet, don't worry, I haven't. It's still yet to come, but yeah, I'll get to that later. So yeah, pretty much, yeah, that's how things are looking right now in the AL West at this point in time. Houston on top, Seattle second, Texas third, Anaheim fourth, and our beloved green and gold still stinking up the joint in the fifth and last place spot in the AL West. Let's go ahead and see what the rest of the divisional standings in the AL look like right now. Over in the AL East, the very team that's coming into town for a 4-game series starting tomorrow is still pretty much in the driver's seat at the top of the AL East, and that's even with, again, that skid that they were on as of late. Kind of still on that skid. They're 4-6 in the last 10 games, but finally, after having Stanton come back and maybe a few other things, maybe for them, unfortunately for everybody else, the New York Yankees might be heading back in that direction of what they looked like up until a few weeks ago, but still in control for now of their destiny in the AL East with a record of 76-48. The Tampa Bay Rays currently in that second place spot with a record of 68-55. The Toronto Blue Jays are in third, with a record of 67-55. The Baltimore Orioles, who went from being basically garbage to holy crap, they potentially could make it into the playoffs, but maybe as a wild card in 2022, are in the fourth place spot right now with a record of 64-59. And the Boston Red Sox, kind of looking a little bit better than they were a while ago. 4 games under 500 at 60-64, but they're the last place team over there in the AL East. So, yeah, very unfortunate year if you're a Boston Red Sox fan. Oh, well for them, LOL. Finally, as far as the divisional standings go on the AL side of things, here are the standings right now. Over in the AL Central, the Cleveland Guardians are sitting in the top place in the Central right now. For the most of the season, it had been the Twins sitting up there. Not the case right now. It's the Guardians instead, who are 66-56, 4 games ahead of the Minnesota Twins, who are 62-60, and also 4 games ahead of the Chicago White Sox, who are 63-61. The Kansas City Royals are sitting in that 4th spot in the AL Central at 51-75, and sitting in the 5th and final spot, rounding out the Central at 48-77, are the Detroit Tigers. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the wild card standings look like right now over on the AL side of things. Obviously, I got to wait for my end to load the standings for the wild card side of things. As it looks right now, the top wild card spot belongs to the Tampa Bay Rays with a 1.5 game advantage. The Toronto Blue Jays currently have that second wild card spot with a game advantage, and the Seattle Mariners at the moment have the third wild card spot in their possession at the moment, with the Baltimore Orioles being a 2.5 games back of that last wild card spot. Minnesota and Chicago 4 games back, and the Red Sox 7 games back of that last wild card spot. But let's be real, I don't think anyone from Boston past them, which basically would be the Red Sox, Texas, Anaheim, Kansas City, Detroit, and us are going to be involved in that. So, 7 games out, but I'm going to go ahead and rule out Boston. We'll see if that ends up changing, but that's how things are looking right. So right now, top 3 wildcard teams, if the season were to end right now, would be Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Seattle, but I'm pretty sure Baltimore, Minnesota, and Chicago are going to continue to make noise. And just, again, it's just crazy watching how tight of a race that AL Central race has been pretty much the entire season. It was a year where many around the sport thought that the White Sox, given the talent that they had on that roster and the fact that Tony La Russa was coming back to manage Major League Baseball, everyone that was a baseball expert pretty much had the White Sox locked in to run away with that division. Ended up not being the case. The White Sox basically floated around 500 the entire year. But luckily for them, I guess that's pretty much been the case as well with Cleveland and Minnesota. So it's going to be real interesting to see what plays out between those 3 teams as the season continues to go on here, and the season draws to a close. That's basically the closest divisional race out of the 6 division races at this point in time in the league. So interesting to see what's going to happen with that. AL East, pretty much, unless you're the Yankees, you're going to have to get in through the wild card, as I almost accidentally ripped my headphones out of my ears again. Because, let's be frank, especially if the Yankees end up getting back to the point that they were before this little skid that they've been on recently, good luck catching them unless, an epic collapse ends up happening of New York Mets proportions. Don't think that's going to end up being the case. So, basically if you're Tampa Bay, Toronto, even Baltimore still at this point, you're going to have to, barring some sort of ridiculous, crazy collapse by the Bronx Bombers, you're going to have to get in through the wild card. And that's pretty much going to have to be the case for Seattle. because same thing, unless something all of a sudden falls off the wagons with the Astros between now and the end of the year, it's going to be the same case with Seattle. They're going to have to get in through the wild card round as well. So it's definitely a lot of interesting races on the divisional side and the wild card side. Probably obviously the wild card race is going to be more interesting as far as really the only close things at this point, in the one lone close race in the AL being the Central race. Kind of almost really a given what the East and the West are going to end up looking like, but at the same time, still got a whole lot of weeks to go. Not set in stone yet, but you kind of got a rough idea of who's going to most likely be winning the AL East and the AL West when it's all said and done. Let's go ahead and move on now from the junior circuit to the senior circuit and see what the standings are looking like over in the divisions of the National League, and obviously also we'll take a look at the wild card standings in the NL as well. We begin looking at the National League standings with what's shaping up right now over in the NL East, where the New York Mets are still sitting on top like they have been for the majority of the season at 79-46. The Atlanta Braves, your defending world champions, are only a game and a half back of those New York Mets. So right now, Atlanta currently sitting on a 78-48 record in the second spot in the NL East race. The Philadelphia Phillies are 9.5 back of the Mets right now at 69-55. The Miami Marlins, who of course just got done taking 2 out of 3 against your Oakland Athletics here at the Coliseum, they're in the fourth spot in the East at 54-70, and the Washington Nationals, who of course the A's will be playing next week to begin their next road trip that they'll be going on after they take on the Yankees in these next 4 games here in Oakland. The Nationals still sitting on the bottom of the NL East with a record of 42-83. NL Central looks like this right now. There was a time early in the year where that was kind of, a mirror image of the AL Central, and you had kind of a close 3-team race early on, and then the Pittsburgh Pirates, of course, were the Pittsburgh Pirates and fell the hell off the face of the earth. And it's still basically from that point forward been a 2-team race over in the Central between basically the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers. Right now it's the Cardinals sitting on top of the Central. The record is 71-53. The Brewers are right now 5.5 games back of the Cardinals in the Central race. In the second spot right now it's 65-58. The Chicago Cubs are in the middle of the division right now, though they're nearly 20 games under 500 at this point in time. The Cubbies are currently 54-70. The Cincinnati Reds, who were the last place team in the Central for most of the year, aren't right now at the moment. They're 48-74, and that's only because the Pittsburgh Pirates have one less win than the Reds do right now. The Pittsburgh Pirates are currently the last place team over in the NL Central with a record of 47-77. That, of course, brings us to what we hear on the show for the last several years, just because of how close the competition has gotten at times as of late over there. Brings us to what we've been referring to the last several years as the Wild, Wild National League West. And the NL West right now still shows the Dodgers sitting on top, as Los Angeles still holds the AL West lead with a record of 86-37. Closest team to them in second place right now is the San Diego Padres. They're 68-58, but they're 19.5 games out of that first place spot. So kind of similar to what you're seeing over on the AL side of things with their second place teams over in the AL West and the AL East, is you're basically going to have to get in through the wild card right now, barring some ridiculous, stupidly dumb collapse by the Dodgers over there in the West. The Padres, again, at 68-58, 19.5 back of the Los Angeles Dodgers. The San Francisco Giants, who for a while were making that look like a 3-team race in the early goings of the season, not so much the case now. The Giants have basically fell out of playoff contention damn near at this point. They're 61-62, 1 game under 500, 25 games back of the Dodgers. They're 5.5 right now out of a wild card spot at the moment. Outside of that, the last 2 spots in the West going currently to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who are in fourth with a record of 56-67, and the last place spot in the NL West right now currently belongs to the Colorado Rockies, who are 54-71. We obviously did it with the AL standings just a little while here ago. We're going to obviously do it with the NL side of things as well, and go ahead and take a look at what things are looking like right now with the NL wild card at the moment. The top NL wild card spot at the moment currently belonging to the defending world champion Atlanta Braves with a 10-game advantage on that top wild card spot. So right now it looks like, unless something happens with them, Atlanta may end up locking in that top wild card spot on the NL side of things. 10-game advantage over the second-place wild card team at the moment, which is currently the Philadelphia Phillies, sitting in that second wild card spot with a 2-game advantage. The San Diego Padres right now holding that third and final wild card spot on the NL side of things. The teams on the outside looking in right now, there's really only two on the National League side, and that's the Milwaukee Brewers, who are a game and a half out from the last wild card spot. And for the time being, the San Francisco Giants are, I guess, still in the wild card mix. They're 5.5 games out, though given the fact that they're playing at 500 right now and have just been atrocious as of late, I don't see them being in that wild card race for long. Bold corporal prediction, the Giants are going to completely fall out of playoff contention in the next couple of weeks. Go ahead and book it, and if I end up being wrong, oh, bloody well, screw the Giants. But that's how I feel that things are going to happen, and, yeah, that's what it's looking right now. And, yeah. So, again, some interesting races going on the NL side of things. Really only one division with one team running away with it, and the rest of the teams having to go through the wild card. Two-team race in the Central, versus, the three-team race on the AL side. So, again, we're going to have one team there that's going to obviously get in as the division winner, and then the other one's going to probably end up going to the playoffs as well as the wild card. And ultimately will be interesting to see if the Mets end up winning the division or if somehow Atlanta can catch them and overtake them and take the division. But, if not, it's looking like, pretty much those two teams in the East will be in the postseason some way or another when it's all said and done. It's really just the other two wild card positions and the NL West or the NL Central, that pretty much have to be left to determine as far as things go with that. And that concludes this show's edition of the current MLB standings. Quick reminder, there is a fan question of the night sitting out there if you haven't had a chance to respond to that bad boy yet. So if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and make your way over to either facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio over on Twitter and look for one of either two posts or tweets. And that's the post or tweet that originally went up at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with the fan question of the night, or the quote tweeted or post version of those that, of course, went up 5 minutes after the show started at approximately 8:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is when the repost or retweet went up. Follow the directions, submit your response to the fan question of the night, and yours truly will read your responses to the fan question of the night during the final segment of tonight's show. And that fan question of the night for this week's show, of course, being, we want to hear your thoughts on the new schedule format that MLB will be implementing next year, which we, of course, will see all 30 MLB teams play each other at least once. If you haven't had a chance to get the details on that, the details are available in a link that I've provided for that fan question of the night. So again, get those responses in at either facebook.com/AsFAnRadio or at A's_fan_radio. And I, of course, will read those during the final segment of tonight's broadcast, right after we do the Roots segment, and just before, of course, I do my final thoughts of the night. We come back, it's going to be, I guess you can say, or count as the first down on the farm segment that we have done in a while. Not going to be taking a look at what the teams have been up to lately, but since they did update it, we'll go ahead and take a look at what the updated top 30 prospects list looks like for your Oakland Athletics. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back at you here in a bit on show number 316 of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, A's Fan Radio. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue on down the road here in the infamous X-rated second half of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's talk from the fans' point of view since 2003. Welcome back, of course, to show number 316 of A's Fan Radio. It is, of course, the legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown coming at you solo for this edition of the show from HQ for AFR, that, of course, being Dub 6 Studios located in the Eastmont Hills of Oakland, California. Reason, of course, that I am broadcasting solo for this edition of the show in case you missed out on the announcement beforehand, or if you're just now tuning into the broadcast because of whatever you had going on your end prior to 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time tonight. Bossman unable to join me due to a family-related matter that's been ongoing since the beginning of the week and is still happening right now, which needs his attention a little bit more than doing things here on the podcast tonight. So that's why Boss isn't here with us. Plans, of course, to rejoin us when we do the next edition of the show next week, unless something else comes up on his end between now and then. And, of course, obviously, between now and then, for those of you that have followed us long enough and know the difference between when I post something and when Boss puts something out there, you can obviously keep your eyes open for whatever shenanigans and facts and whatnot that he tweets out between now and the next edition of AFR. Normally, of course, especially, it's not going to be the case tonight because I'm going to hold off on bringing it back until next week's edition of the show. Next week's edition of the show, obviously, at this point in time is when you will see the Bear Raid, the segment version of the Bear Raid get back into the fold. It's, of course, obviously, next week will be just a few days away from the return of Cal football up there at California Memorial Stadium, and, of course, the place where I've watched Cal football for free since the 2002 big game, and, of course, a spot that folks have watched Cal games for free since 1923. That's, of course, the world-famous, the world-legendary Tightwad Hill. Of course, obviously, regardless if you're a Cal fan or not, you haven't had a chance to do it yet, you should go up there at least once. It's worth the view, great view of the stadium, and even if you can't make it up there for a game, just go up there even on a non-game day and, just snap some photos, man. Great view of the of most of the Bay Area from up there. It'd be a great place to go and chill, even if there wasn't a football stadium conveniently right there for you to watch college football on a Sunday afternoon or evening, or even the rare Friday evening games that occasionally go down in Berkeley. So Bear Raid segment will return on next week's edition of the show, as we, of course, will preview not only the home opener for the California Golden Bears next Saturday at California Memorial Stadium against the UC Davis Aggies, but obviously take a look at what they have on tap for the entirety of their 2022 schedule. And may take a look into some other stuff. We'll have to see. Maybe for that, I'll probably just focus on just the Cal football portion. But later on that same weekend, about a couple days later on September the 4th, for those of you that followed our Cal sister podcast that we haven't done in over 3 months because of obviously me catching COVID, the wife getting COVID before that, a whole bunch of other stuff, and Grizz passing away and all that, things before that. September the 4th is when the podcast version of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill will resume its broadcast. And, of course, on that show, we'll break down the first home game of the year, probably in a weird, crazy format that I've done before, where we'll obviously have a lot of the show happen here at Dub 6 Studios, but I'll probably end up also recording some audio for that show up on Tightwad Hill before and after the game Saturday, because I don't know if Donnie's going to make it over here or not. Who knows if Tad's going to make it over here. It's always an adventure getting a hold of Tad to try to get him on the Bear Raid, and, a lot of things, Tito's got a lot of stuff going on as of late, so, it's been a while since we had him here on A's Fan Radio, been a while since Tito's been on the Bear Raid, too, so, pretty much will be good to see if any or all of them are alongside with me when the Bear Raid resumes, or if it will just be me like it had been for a while before the Bear Raid took an inadvertent summer hibernation after show number 21 back in, what was that, beginning, end of June? I don't even remember, but yeah, that's what things are looking like in regards to that. As far as the this segment, which normally we would do after the MLB standings, kind of, again, unfortunately, catting off with doing this, and I figured at least I would do it in some form tonight, finally, though we aren't going to be taking a look at what the minor league teams have been up to like we normally have been, because the last time I did that, the website started acting all funny and crazy for the minor league teams, and it just pissed me off, and that's part of the reason why I haven't done a Down on the Farm segment since that last show that I did it. But I guess I figured with them obviously just recently updating the Oakland Athletics top 30 prospects that I would at least would go over that and have that, I guess, count as this show's edition of a Down on the Farm segment, since we hadn't done any sort of a Down on the Farm segment on the show for a while. So that'll be happening here. You'll have to hold your breath and wait and see if I decide to go back to doing the minor league recaps next week or not. And a lot of that depends, too, on how much, there's not that much time probably left with the minor league schedule, but what the hell, maybe I'll bring it back, or at least use it as an opportunity to see what's going on in the postseason, because who knows if any of our minor league teams are making any runs of the postseason or not. But anywho, again, this will count as this show's edition of the quote-unquote Down on the Farm segment, where, again, we are taking a look at the just recently, this is like within the last week, that they updated this, and MLB Pipeline updated the other 30 teams, or the other 29 teams' top 30 prospects as well. But obviously we're only focusing on the top 30 prospects for the one lone team that we currently give a damn about in Major League Baseball, unless, of course, they end up not staying in Oakland. They dip to Vegas, and then at that point they can fuck off. But we're not at that point yet. But as my roommate just showed up from the job site to go out to smoke. Currently, again, top 30 prospects at this point in time for your Oakland Athletics. Number one, it hasn't really changed much. It's, of course, still Shea Langoliers, who, of course, is the top of prospect of all the 30 prospects for the A's. Catcher, obviously. Currently is at the MLB level with your Oakland Athletics. Just got called up a little over a week ago and has kind of already started to make an impact up at the Major League level with the squads. It's going to be really interesting to see how things play out with him over the remainder of this season, and how much of an impact that has going into next year, and how he builds off of that, as he obviously will be in the mix as far as the Major League roster goes in 2023. Tyler Soderstrom, who technically also is a catcher, but they have him listed as a first baseman and catcher. Remember, basically we have a whole bunch of top prospects that are catchers right now. We're going to have to ultimately figure out if we're going to move those fools to other positions, or if some of these guys are going to end up getting, used as trade bait in the next several seasons. But Tyler Soderstrom is one of those catchers that are in the top prospects for your Oakland Athletics, but again listed as a first baseman and a catcher. Currently is with Double-A Midland at the moment, playing with the Rockhounds right now. He's currently not expected to crack the MLB roster until sometime in 2024. Number 3 on the A's top prospect list is Ken Waldichuk, Waldichuk. He's, of course, a left-handed pitcher who right now at the moment is at Triple-A Las Vegas with his ETA set to be this year. I guess we'll have to see maybe if he's one of the September call-ups potentially for the A's when it gets point in time to bring up some of the guys from the minors and rosters expand next month. Number 4 is third baseman Zach Geloff, who's currently with Double-A Midland. He's not expected to hit the Major League roster until sometime in 2024. Prospect number 5 is a guy that literally was just drafted by the Oakland Athletics, and that's the other catching prospect that we have in the system, and that, of course, is recently drafted Daniel Suzik, who's currently at low A ball at the moment. He's not expected to get to the majors until 2025 at the earliest. Number 6 is Henry Bolte, Bolte, who I believe, if I remember correctly, the A's also took in this year's draft as well. He's an outfielder, currently at rookie ball, not expected to be anywhere near the MLB roster until sometime in 2026. Max Muncy, no, not the Max Muncy that we had the first go-around. This is with the Dodgers. This is a completely different Max Muncy, if you haven't been following along, is our 7th top prospect. He's a shortstop who's currently with the high A Lansing Lugnuts. Isn't expected to be on the roster until 2024 at the earliest. Number 8 is Jordan Diaz, who's a corner infielder, first baseman, third baseman, currently with the AAA Las Vegas Aviators. Isn't expected to crack the MLB roster until sometime next season. Number 9 is Gunnar Hoglund, who's a right-handed pitcher at A-ball at the moment, not expected to be up with the A's until 2024 at the earliest. Number 10 is JT Ginn, who's a right-handed pitcher at Double-A at the moment. Number 10 is Denzel Clark, who's, of course, another one of the outfielders and players that the A's took in this year's draft. He's currently listed to be in a high A ball at the moment, not expected to be anywhere near the MLB squad until 2024. Luis Medina is the 12th ranked prospect in the A's farm system. He's a right-handed pitcher currently at Double-A ball. He was expected to arrive with the team this season, but obviously that ended up not happening. Going to have to wait and see maybe if he's somebody that they decide randomly to call up in September, if he ends up being a factor with things on the squad in 2023. Clark Elliott, another outfielder, if I remember correctly, the A's took this year, is the 13th top prospect in the farm system, currently at rookie ball, not expected to be with the team until 2025. Number 14 is Ryan Cusick, Cusick, currently a right-handed pitcher at Double-A ball. Number 15 is Lawrence Butler, who's a first baseman and outfielder at rookie ball. Also at rookie ball and currently the 16th top prospect in the system is Colby Thomas, who's an outfielder. J.P. Sears is the 17th ranked prospect in the A's farm system. He, of course, currently is with the Major League squad and was a part of the package that we ended up getting from the New York Yankees in exchange for Frankie Montas, and he who was formerly known as J-Cat number 62, he is now J-Cat number 56 over there in New York. Brent Harris, who's a third baseman, is the 18th ranked prospect currently in the A's farm system. He's a Double-A at the moment. Rubio Angeles is the 19th ranked prospect. He's an infielder at high A ball. Jeff Criswell is the top 20th prospect, a right-handed pitcher at Double-A. Logan Davison, who's a third baseman / shortstop, is currently at Double-A. He's the 21st ranked prospect in the system. 22nd ranked prospect is Mason Miller, who's a right-handed pitcher that's currently at rookie ball in the A's system. Byron Buelvas, Buelvas, is an outfielder who's 23rd in the system right now and is at high A currently in the system. Pedro Pineda is the 24th ranked prospect. He's an outfielder who's currently at rookie ball in the A's farm system. The 25th ranked prospect is Joey Estes, who's a right-handed pitcher at high A ball currently at the moment. Colin Peluse, Peluse, is a right-handed pitcher at Double-A, who's the 26th ranked prospect in the system at the moment. Jacob Waters is the 27th ranked prospect, who's a right-handed pitcher at rookie ball at the moment. Jonah Bride is the 28th ranked prospect in the A's farm system, an infielder who's also a catcher and currently at the MLB level with the Oakland Athletics. Cooper Bowman is the 29th ranked prospect in the system, second baseman who's currently at high A ball. And the 30th and final top prospect for your Oakland Athletics is right-handed pitcher Garrett Action, who is at AAA at the moment. However, he's not expected to be with the club until 2024. And pretty much that's most of the case for a lot of these guys, unless they're already here right now, with the one exception being, let me look back up here on things. Where was I here on the roster? You had one individual that's in the minors right now that was projected to be in the majors. Okay, never mind. Maybe I was wrong about that. But yeah, anyway, Luis Medina, there he is, projected to be in the majors right now, but he's a Double-A at the moment. Outside of that, mostly a lot of these guys, with the exception of a couple that are up at the major league level right now, pretty much are not expected to be factors as far as things go on the MLB level until next year at the earliest, or for the most part 2024 and beyond. Now, obviously, will all of these individuals end up in Oakland? Who the hell knows? Most likely not. Some of these guys probably will end up either falling off and not developing as they were expected to. Others probably will develop, have cups of coffee, become at least, guys to contribute off the bench, or, some spot situations here and there if they're an arm coming out of the pen, or a spot start every now and then. And obviously you will have your couples there that will end up blowing everybody away, like Power probably pretty much expecting Shane Langoliers, or Banglers, as our friend Casey Pratt likes to call him at this point. That's the real crapshoot in baseball. I know Billy Bean liked to always talk about the playoffs being the crapshoot, and I will continue to say bullshit. The real crapshoot in baseball is drafting players and filling up your minor league system. That's the real crapshoot, because you never know if those bastards are actually going to ever pan out, or if you're going to end up with a bust, or something somewhere in between. And that's the real crapshoot in Major League Baseball. Screw the playoffs being a crapshoot. So yeah, obviously, again, some of those guys on that top 30 prospects Athletics are already making an impact in Oakland. Some are a year away, others are a couple years or more away. And ultimately, it'll be interesting to see if those individuals do impact things at the major league level at Oakland in the years to come, or like I said, if they end up falling off or end up being trade bait pieces for other moves that go down in the months and years to come for the green and gold. And that wraps up this show's edition of the Down on the Farm segment. Will it be the last Down on the Farm segment of the year? Who knows? Maybe if I'm feeling up to it, I'll get back to doing the game recap versions of the Down on the Farm segment on next week's show. We'll have to obviously wait and see in regards to that. If we do, then obviously I'll throw that back into where it normally went in the broadcast, which was during the standings portion of the segment, because like I said, next week's edition of the show, it's going to be the segment edition of the Bear Raid presented by Tightwad Hill, making its way back into the mix here, as of course we will preview the upcoming Cal football season here on the Bear Raid the segment edition of the Bear Raid on next week's edition of the show. And of course, as mentioned, on September the 4th, the podcast edition of the Bear Raid, hopefully, barring something coming up between now and then that delays it again, will go down the long-awaited 22nd edition of the Bear Raid, slated for September the 4th at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And for you A's fans out there that happen to be fans of Cal football or even just fan of Cal athletics in general, for more information on the podcast version of the Bear Raid, if you want to happen to check it out, check things out at facebook.com/TightwadHillOfficial. Follow things on Twitter at TightwadHill23. For information also pertaining to the Bear Raid, you can check things out at AsFANRadio.com/the Bear Raid, presented by Tightwad Hill, which is kind of serving as an unofficial website page for the Bear Raid until a Tightwad Hill website's recreated again. Live editions of the Bear Raid are broadcast right here on the same Twitch channel you're watching AsFANRadio on right here, right now. Bear Raid also broadcasts here on twitch.tv/AsFANRadio. And just like past editions of AsFANRadio, you can catch past editions of the Bear Raid over on YouTube as well. Haven't gotten a chance to update that graphic, and I know I probably most likely didn't do it with the graphic for the next edition of the show, so I'm probably going to not even use that. We finally were able to have enough subscribers to customize the URL to the YouTube channel, so it is youtube.com/c/AsFANRadio to check out all that stuff. Which means, final reminder for the fan question of the night is upon you right now. So that means you basically have the final break and the Roots segment to get in your responses if you haven't done so yet, because as soon as I get done with that Roots segment, I am going to read however many responses are out there at that point in time to the fan question of the night. So yeah, you haven't done so yet, last chance right here, right now, between when I get done talking and when the Roots segment wraps up in the final segment, to get in your responses for this show's edition of the fan question of the night, which again you can find on either facebook.com/AsFANRadio or at As_fan_radio over on Twitter. Look for the poster tweet that says fan question of the night that went up at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, or the quoted poster tweet that went up at 8:05 p.m. Pacific Standard Time just after the show started. Follow the directions on there, submit your responses, and of course I will read your responses during the final segment of tonight's show. We want to hear your thoughts on the new format that MLB baseball will be, or Major League Baseball will be implementing with its schedule next year, in which all 30 teams are going to play each other at least once for the first time ever during the regular season. And if you need details and info on that, we provided a link so you can get caught up on all that information before you submit your response. Again, we want to hear your thoughts on the new schedule format that will go into place for MLB in 2023. And again, those responses to the fan question can be submitted at either facebook.com/AsFANRadio or at As_fan_radio over on Twitter. On that note, final break of the night coming at you, followed by the Roots segment, the responses to the fan question of the night, and, of course, my final thought of the night in the final segment of tonight's show. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back at you here in a bit for the final segment of show number 316 of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, AsFANRadio. All right, folks. Let's go ahead and get on into the final segment of tonight's edition of your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. A's Talk from the fans' point of view since 2003. It is, of course, show number 316 of AsFAnRAdio, and I am, of course, legally 5150 Cpl Oaktown, coming at you from Dub 6 Studios up in the Eastmont Hills of Oakland, California, but coming at you all solo for this nearly almost what at this point in time is a 2 hour and 25 plus minute show. Probably going to be well over 2.5 hours, maybe even close to 2 hours and 45 minutes probably once I'm all said and done with this final segment of tonight's show. But hey, it happens sometimes where, especially when we haven't come at you in a few weeks, we end up having a lot to talk about, and it does end up dragging on this long. So thank you, of course, as always, to all of you out there that stick with us through the entirety of the entire broadcast. We obviously know sometimes some of you out there aren't able to do that. So basically, those of you, of course, that had to part out and dip out, obviously you can catch the recording of this broadcast either over on our Twitch channel, and, of course, in several hours, we, of course, will have the YouTube version of this broadcast up for y'all to check out as well, in case you either missed the beginning of the show or you had to dip out early at some point because of something going on. So either way, you always have one way or another to catch the show in its entirety, some way, some form. On that note, let's go ahead and get the final segment of tonight's edition of AFR underway. As, of course, we begin things with the Roots segment in the final segment of tonight's show, which, of course, last reminder for y'all out there to get into responses to the fan question of the night if you, for some bloody reason, have not gotten a chance to do that, because, obviously, once I get done recapping things here with the Oakland Roots, I'm going to go ahead and head right into responding to those fan questions of the night. 2 games going down for Oakland Roots SC since the last time we came at you here on the show. One of those games, of course, going down last Saturday after an off week prior to that, which, of course, that was the weekend that we came at you the last time here on the show. One game, again, that, of course, went down last week. The other game just wrapped up earlier tonight, of course, wrapping up while we were doing the show, and I'm pretty sure, of course, as I mentioned, y'all saw the boss put out a few tweets in regards to the Roots game over on our social media page. Of course, we will take a look at that here in a bit. Before we get to what went down with the game in San Diego tonight, we, of course, obviously have to touch bases first on the game that went down on August the 13th. And a matchup, of course, between two teams that had some history, I guess you can say, and had not played each other in nearly almost 2 years. The last time these two teams locked horns on the soccer pitch before August 13th, you got to go all the way back to the abbreviated, shortened, whatever you want to call it, NISA 2020 championship, when the Oakland Roots and Detroit City FC faced off for the championship that year. That was, of course, the setup that they had as a result of the shortened season and COVID all going on. The final matchup came down to the Roots and Detroit City for the NISA championship. The Roots jumped out, of course, to an early 1-0 lead in that championship game, only to have 2 unanswered goals scored by Detroit City FC in the second half of that contest. Of course, Detroit City went on to win that 2020 NISA championship game by that final of 2-1. So Roots looking for a little bit of payback, you could say, as they met with the Detroit City FC in Detroit for the first time since that match went down in 2020. And it almost kind of, unfortunately for the Roots, looked like it was going to play out just like that NISA championship game of 2 years ago. As just like with that game in 2020, the Roots jumped out to the early 1-0 lead in the first half of that contest back on August the 13th. Ultimately, though, they would not be able to hold on to the lead as Detroit City would hit an equalizer goal during the second half to knot the game up at 1. Luckily, though, for the Roots, it would not be the same outcome as that championship game in 2020. But the unfortunate thing is it would result in the 12th draw of this season for your Oakland Roots, as they would end up playing Detroit City FC to a 1-1 draw back on August the 13th. It also turns out that would end up being the last game that Juan Guerrera would end up coaching for the Oakland Roots. As in the days that followed that match, it was revealed that Guerrera had been in talks on and off with the club that he used to be a former assistant to a couple years ago in Phoenix Rising FC. Another team, of course, that's in the USL, same conference in the USL as the Oakland Roots. And, let's just say that the Roots were not very happy when they got wind of that going on, because of the fact that, Guerrero was just signed to a multi-year deal going into this season. Yet here you are having talks with a team that just let their coach go while you're still under contact with this team that you supposedly were going to help coach and develop these next couple of years. God, just ridiculous how controversy always somehow, some way finds an Oakland team, no matter what professional or amateur, whatever sport it is. Controversy always has a way of making it always be Oakland versus everybody. So pretty much to sum things all up, once that news broke that Guerrera had been in contact with Phoenix Rising FC, the Roots placed him on administrative leave. At that point, and can't blame him for that. It's like, come on, dude, you're under contract with us, and here you are off talking to an opponent, let alone an opponent that's in our conference, for crying out loud. I don't know, man. If the reality is that you really wanted or preferred that job in Phoenix, Juan, why did you come here? Why didn't you just wait around for Phoenix to open up? Because that's pretty fucked up on your part, that you basically wasted almost a year's worth of time for the Roots to just sit around and wait for that to open up. Ultimately, the Roots and Phoenix Rising FC were able to agree to a deal, undisclosed dollar amount, who knows what it was, but ultimately Phoenix acquiring the rights to now former Roots head coach Juan Guerrera, and I believe he ended up taking an assistant with him down there, and he basically is going to begin coaching right away down there in Phoenix, which is going to make things pretty interesting, because amongst the 8 games, obviously prior to the game that just wrapped up tonight, they had 9 games left, but obviously tonight's game's already in the books. We're going to get to the final on that one here in a little bit. But obviously, the Roots after tonight have 8 games left. Guess who one of those 8 games is against on the road before the season's over with? Yep, Phoenix Rising FC is going to be one of those opponents that the Roots face on the road before the year's over with. So right out the bat, they're going to face their former head coach before the season's over with. And if I'm the Roots players and any of the fans making the road trip on that game, raise hell and kick their ass and just embarrass the hell out of Phoenix Rising. It's flat out ridiculous that happened. I mean, obviously, I guess it's at a point where the Roots feel the situation's resolved, but me personally, and I'm pretty sure I'm not alone on this as a Roots fan, I really feel there should be some sort of other disciplinary actions taken by USL Championship for what Guerrera and Phoenix Rising ultimately did. But I guess as far as the Roots are concerned, that's behind them at this point. So tonight, of course, seeing a new coach take over the reins of the Roots, and I'll have more information on that with next week's show, as again, just trying to rush to get everything together with this one. Kind of one of the few details I forgot to look up before tonight's match is, of course, just a little while ago, the Roots in action down in San Diego tonight as they took on San Diego Loyal down in the great city of San Diego. And it ended up not being a draw for the Roots. Hell, it wasn't even a loss for your Oakland Roots. Your Oakland Roots actually managed to get a win tonight. Been a while since the last time that's happened for our beloved local USL soccer team, and it was actually a decisive win, too. No meager one-goal advantage of all that. San Diego Loyal was able to get 1 goal on their side of things in this one. It ended up being 2-1 in favor of the Roots going into the half of tonight's contest. The Roots would add on to that lead with 1 goal in the second half as Juan Carlos Oscar got a goal. Imra Calamita got a goal as well, and Elgardo Rito hitting the third and final goal for the Roots in this one, as Oakland Roots SC downs San Diego Loyal tonight and picks up something that's been very rare for them in 2022, a W. Not a draw, not a loss. The Roots actually got a W tonight as they defeat San Diego Loyal by the final of 3-1. Just, great job by the gang there, getting the W, new head coach in, obviously, having that pressure on top of you, the whole situation and the fallout of what just went down with former head coach Juan Guerrera, and just, great to see the Roots come out and basically make a statement following that whole situation and that controversy happening. And hopefully it's something that they can use to build on with 8 games left in the books before the USL championship season is all said and done, and try to build towards, getting one of those last playoff spots in the Western Conference. Still 8 games to go. Obviously, we're going to see our former head coach during one of those 8 games on the road when the Roots do go to Phoenix later on before the year is over with. The Roots, of course, their next game on tap is their first home game in over a damn month. The Roots haven't been at the pitch at Laney College since the end of July was the last time they were home. They were basically had one off day early in August and have been on the road the entire month up until this point. That, of course, changes next Saturday. Did I get ahead of myself? And wow, hold on here. Oh, wow. My bad. They do have one more game ahead of them between now and next week. I don't know why, but I forgot to bring up that image for that one. Before I get ahead of myself, before that home game on September the 3rd, they have the final of the 3 games that they have all played on the road this month coming at our way this Saturday, August 27th, as they will be heading up north to take on Sacramento Republic FC on the road. Saturday, August 27th, that will be an 8 p.m. Start time for that match up in Sacramento. Already know that a lot of the gang is making the road trip out there. A good friend of the show, Eric Madsen, who of course is a member of Forever Oakland, is actually taking one of the 2 buses that are going to be going up to Sacramento for that contest. That'll be the final road game in what basically was an entire month on the road for the Oakland Roots against Sacramento Republic this upcoming Saturday, August the 27th. After that, of course, and obviously we'll preview that on next week's show, they will have, of course, the first home game in over a month on September the 3rd at Laney College against the San Antonio FC. Let's go ahead and give me a little bit of a second here because I didn't get it pulled up right away. Now I'm going to get it pulled up here in a second. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a look at what the standings look like right here, right now, over in the Western Conference of USL Championship. Going to be really interesting to see now where the Roots are standing at this point, given the fact that, hey, we didn't get a damn draw. We actually got a win finally. It's just, great to see that because it's been so damn annoying watching the Roots be the tying team, as Jorge Leon's sister Alejandra dubbed them this year. Because really, yeah, the tying team, or the drawing team, if you want to call them. 12 draws going into tonight's contest. There's only one other team out there that can, probably, unfortunately, know what it is like to be in that position right now, and that's a team in the Western Conference of the MLS at the moment, the Portland Timbers, I just saw the other day. Basically are the Roots of the MLS right now. They have 12 draws over the course of the season, and just have watched teams jump them in the playoff standings. I just the other night was actually watching a game where they lost to Sporting KC, who was the last place team in the MLS Western Conference. So, yeah, Portland can kind of relate to what Oakland has been going through to some extent right here, right now. Anyway, here are what the current standings look like right now in the Western Conference of USL Championship. San Antonio FC, who, of course, the Roots will play home in Oakland next Saturday night, is currently still sitting on top of the Western Conference with a record of 18-4-3 for a total of 57 points. San Diego Loyal SC, who, of course, the Roots beat by the score of 3-1 tonight, are in the second place spot right now with a record of 16-7-4 for a total of 52 points. Colorado Springs Switchback is in the third spot right now with a record of 14-9-3 for a total of 45 points. New Mexico United is in the fourth spot with a record of 11-6-9 for 42 points. Sacramento Republic FC, who of course your Oakland Roots will take on this upcoming Saturday at 8 p.m. in Sacramento, are in the fifth spot right now with a record of 11-7-7 for 40 points. The Las Vegas Lights FC FC are in the 6th spot right now at 10, 9, and 7 for 37 points. And the El Paso Locomotive are the current holders of the 7th and final playoff spot in the Western Conference of USL Championship. They're currently 9, 11, and 7 for a total of 34 points. Outside looking in right now in the 8th spot is LA Galaxy 2, who are 9, 11, and 6 for a total of 33 points. Tied with LA Galaxy 2 for the 8th spot right now at 7, 7, and 12 are your Oakland Roots for a total of 33 points as well. So currently tied with LA Galaxy for the first spot on the outside looking into the playoff picture. So that win did help out things a little bit as the Roots are just 1 point out from the last playoff spot right now. So again, got to basically have every game be a must-win out of these 8 games, or win as many of these next 8 games as you can going forward. Again, Roots currently tied for 33 points in the 8th spot with LA Galaxy 2. Phoenix Rising FC, who, of course, just did a bunch of shady shenanigans and bullshit to take our former head coach, who clearly, obviously, rather wanted to have the job in Phoenix rather than the job in Oakland. So, yeah, screw you, Phoenix. Screw your head coach, and screw your damn USL team and your whack-ass fans, too. Y'all are currently sitting in the 10th spot right now with a record of 8, 11, and 5 for 29 points. Tied with y'all for the 10th spot currently is the expansion Monterey Bay FC, who originally were sitting down in the last place spot of the conference at one point. They've jumped up a couple spots, currently tied for 10th. With a record of 9, 13, and 2 for 29 points as well. Orange County SC and Rio Grande Valley FC are currently tied for the last spot in the conference. Orange County SC is 6, 10, and 9 for a total of 27 points, and Rio Grande Valley FC is 7, 11, and 6, which is also good for a total of 27 points. And that's how things are looking at this point in time right here, right now in the Western Conference of USL Championship. Hey, Roots are only a point out right now from that final spot in the Western Conference, which, again, at the moment is currently being held by El Paso Locomotive. You string a couple wins together, you can easily find yourselves potentially jumping in front of El Paso and Las Vegas. Don't know if you're going to get past, Sacramento Republic and the teams up at that point. But, depending on what you do these next 8 games, you could easily find yourself in one of those last 2 playoff spots. But you know how you're not going to find yourself in the postseason for the USL? If you continue to be the tying team, or if you lose a bunch of these last 8 games you have. So literally, you got to go into every one of these final 8 games as basically do or die. Get a win. Worst case scenario, if you get a tie, hey, 1 point's better than none. But like I said, I'm sick and tired of seeing these guys get draws at this point. I want to see wins the rest of the way out from Oakland Roots SC. They're able to do that, they'll be in the postseason. If not, then they will miss the postseason during their second season in USL. Pretty much it's their destiny and their road to control at this point, if they can grab one of those last 2 playoff spots or not before these last 8 games are all said and done for them. And that, of course, concludes this week's edition of the Oakland Roots segment. Definitely going to be interesting to see how things play out come next week when we take a look back at how the derby with the Sacramento Republic squad ends up going down. And, of course, obviously preview their first home game back in Oakland in over a month when we come at you on the next edition of the show. Sometime next week, obviously right now slated for September the 1st, but as you all know, given shenanigans and whatnot, things could always end up changing with that. On that note, if you haven't had a chance to do so, guess what, brothers and sisters? Yo, time is up. You had over, let's see, how far into the broadcast are we at this point in time? Almost 2 hours and 45 minutes in. You've had almost 2 hours and 45 minutes to get a response into the fan question of the night. So if you haven't done so yet at this point, that's pretty much on you, and you'll just have to wait until next week's edition of the show to chime in on whatever the bloody hell we throw out there y'all's way to respond to. But obviously, for those of you that did chime in for this week's edition of it, we're going to go ahead and right here, right now, read off those responses that were submitted by you, the fans and listeners of A's Fan Radio for this edition of A's Fan Radio. And, of course, as I always mention, we always try to have some sort of a fan question of the night out there for every single edition of the show. Pretty much that's the way that we try to get y'all's involvement in, because after all these years, we still haven't figured out how to set up a call-in capability. And I'm not going to have a whole bunch of folks out there, regardless how long you've been following the show. I'm sorry, I'm not about to have a whole bunch of random numbers start calling my personal cell phone just to have y'all call in and ramble on with your thoughts about the team. Be great and all, but I really don't have the time or the energy to do that, not to mention the fact that pretty much right now, until it gets to the point where we're either doing stuff on location or he's able to make it over here, cell phone's how Boss Man pretty much calls in to do stuff. So, yeah, until we get a whole separate thing figured out for call-in capability or whatever, best way to have responses from you, the fans, heard on this show is to obviously get in a response to the fan question of the night, which we're going to read right here, right now, whoever ended up chiming in on that. Only one response. Hey, one response is better than none for the fan question of the night. So the one response that was submitted for tonight's fan question of the night, which of course was, we wanted to hear your thoughts on the new schedule format that Major League Baseball will be using starting next season, which of course will be the first time ever that we see all 30 teams play against each other at least once during the season. Our good friend David being the only person that chimed in on either Facebook or Twitter for this one. His thoughts? Horrible, horrible, horrible. There was already too much interleague as early as its birth in 1997, and now it has gone beyond the state of disaster. If the late, great Bill King was still with us, I bet he would tell you the same with more advanced vocabulary, yet I digress somewhat. Look, I get this is no longer the 70s and 80s when schedules were interleague balanced as they should. IMO revert back to dumping interleague entirely for roughly 26% of the season to be wasted with games against teams of the other leagues significantly cuts into matchups within a team's own league that can help eliminate an exhausting long postseason, one that before we know it will be as ridiculously long as those of the NBA and NHL. MLB, you continue to lose me. David, I love you, but I hate to say it, I disagree with you on that. I understand where you come from in thinking that it's ultimately horrible. I don't think it's horrible. I think baseball should have started doing this years ago, and the postseason's not going to end up being as long as the damn NHL and NBA postseason. As I've said multiple times, the playoffs were going to need to be expanded ultimately in baseball anyway, because guess what's going to happen come a decade from now once the A's and the Rays stadium situation's resolved? Expansion's coming, man. And the reality is, why wait until expansion to expand the playoffs? Just get that put in there now. Again, I get where you're coming from, and I'm pretty sure David is probably not the only one out there that feels that way about the format. Myself, on the other hand, I welcome it, have been wanting it, and look forward to seeing how it affects things next year. Because like I said, it gives fans an opportunity to see players and teams that they normally wouldn't see unless it was the postseason or the World Series or the old rotation of the interleague play, or if you had to go on a road trip to go watch that team, or if you went into spring training. Sometimes up until next year, that was the only way to do that. The game, of course, is changing come next year. So I guess we'll have to really ultimately wait and see how things play out in 2023 to see if this ends up being a good thing for baseball, like myself and Boss and others suspect, or if it ends up being a bad thing for baseball, like David and probably some others out there suspect. We'll have to wait and see if it does end up being good or bad. Thank you, David, for chiming in, and hey, thank you again for at least giving us one response to throw out there for everybody to hear. Again, as always, look for the fan question of the night on the day of each broadcast, before every broadcast. Usually, if we aren't putting one out there, I'll give advance notice, but more often than not, we always do a fan question that goes out, usually always sometime between about 4 and 5 p.m. on the day of the show, and then, of course, a reminder goes out about 5 minutes after the show. So always keep your eyes open for those and make sure you respond to those. That way you can hear your responses read right here during the show broadcast. As always, for the latest information pertaining to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics, be sure, of course, to check us out at AsFANRadio.com. Like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/AsFANRadio. Follow the AFR Madness over on Twitter at A's / Let me start over with that one again. Follow the madness over on Twitter at As_fan_radio. I know we still have the old original URL for our YouTube channel up there. When we come back from the next edition of the show, I will have that stuff fixed. We do finally now have a custom URL for the YouTube channel, which, of course, you can access by going to youtube.com/C/AsFAnRadio. And, of course, as always, unless it's otherwise noted, you can catch all of our live editions of the show right here on twitch.tv/AsFAnRadio, where it will not be show number 315 going down. I know it's the second broadcast in a row where I forgot to fix that on the info screen, because we'd be going backwards and into the past if we were doing 315 all over again. The next edition of AsFAnRadio is not show number 315, and it's obviously not 316, because that's what's coming at you in your ears right here, right now. It will actually, of course, be show number 317, which will go down next Thursday, September the 1st at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on twitch.tv/AsFAnRadio. And finally, nearly 2 hours and 50-plus minutes into the broadcast, we now finally come to the tail end of things and get to my final thoughts of the night, which, of course, I will obviously begin with something that I alluded to that I was going to share in my final thoughts way back at the beginning of tonight's show, almost 2 hours and 50-plus minutes ago, and loosely mentioned that I would discuss here right now at this point in time. And that's obviously the current situation and the future of the Angels down there in Anaheim. Obviously, early in the year, we saw that what was supposed to end up being a deal for Artie Moreno and the Angels to acquire and buy Angel Stadium and the Angel Stadium site from the city of Anaheim. The deal ultimately fell apart and was blown up. As it turned out, the then mayor of Anaheim was involved in a whole bunch of corruptious, scandalous nonsense that was done backdoors and behind the scenes to push that deal to the forefront, which ultimately led to the city council basically killing the deal off and pretty much putting things to the point in time where they are right now. Pretty much initially, Moreno and the team didn't know or weren't revealing what their intentions were going to end up being. Not too long after that stadium deal fell apart, of course, you had the city of Long Beach open their arms and being willing to resume talks that the Angels and the city of Long Beach had prior to the Angels Stadium deal coming together, for the Angels to possibly relocate to Long Beach and build a stadium not too far from the convention center, the aquarium, and where the Queen, right across the water from where the Queen Mary's at over there, and where the Spruce Goose used to be back in the day. That's how long it's been since I was last in Long Beach. When I was last down there, I was a little ass kid, and the Spruce Goose was still on display down in that Yoo-hoo. Kind of got some mixed reactions. We've obviously shared images of where that proposed stadium location in Long Beach is at, and it's been kind of, mixed reactions into that. I see it as a good site for a stadium. Boss, who, of course, has had family living in that area for many years and, of course, went to school down there, went to college in SoCal at one point, familiar with the Long Beach area, likes the site. And, it's kind of been a mixture of either love the site or hate the site from people we talked out there. But again, just to mention, obviously, Long Beach extending that offer to resume talks with the Angels not too long after the deal fell apart. And, of course, since then, we've seen the Angels go through multiple losing streaks, falling completely out of playoff contention, Shohei Ohtani having another season wasted because of that, Mike Trout being injured. And that basically brings you up to the point that we're at right here, right now, which is that news broke yesterday that Artie Moreno, his family, and the Angels ownership pretty much at this point are exploring every option on the table, including potentially selling the franchise during the offseason. As, of course, we all know, the Washington Nationals are already expected to go on the market and go for sale at some point during the coming months during the offseason. So you may have the possibility of two teams being on sale once the season draws to a close. And obviously we threw a poll out there with you, with obviously all this stuff going on, to really gauge y'all on what you think would ultimately happen or what's going to happen with the future of the Angels if they do end up selling and they get a new owner involved. Nearly almost 49% of you think the Angels are going to stay in Anaheim. Another less than about 35 to 40%, for some odd reason, thinks that they're going to go to Vegas. Another 19 to or 18 to almost 20% thinks that the relocation to Long Beach is going to happen, and then basically less than 8% of y'all think that a relocation to somewhere else in the SoCal area will end up happening. Myself and Boss, we personally feel like the bridge is beyond burned in Anaheim. I really, bearing some sort of, whatever discussions maybe take place, should a new owner get into place, I really don't know if that's repairable, even with the new owner in place. My gut tells me and has me foreseeing the Angels going to Long Beach, and that's either with a new owner or if Moreno ultimately decides not to sell and he just decides to relocate and then sell the franchise after he does something up there in Long Beach. I really don't think that they end up in Vegas. I know a lot of us are really probably just throwing out there just, to, throw some dirt in Angel fans' eye and take heat off of the whole talks of, the parallel paths that the A's are doing with the Howard Terminal site, and, if that falls through, the A's potentially going to Vegas. But, the reality is, if I was some big shot billionaire in Vegas that had fuck you money and was interested in buying a team, fuck the A's. I'd rather buy the Angels right now just because of their market value. But, the reality is I really don't see the Angels either under a new owner or even if Moreno decides to stay on longer and do something afterwards, leaving SoCal. I really don't see them staying in Anaheim, so that's why I feel most likely what we end up seeing happen is a relocation to Long Beach. But, I could be wrong and Boss could be wrong. Maybe a new owner is able to get something worked out with the city of Anaheim and end up, redeveloping or building a whole new stadium there on that current site and building a development. We'll have to ultimately wait and see. For all we know, like I said, maybe what Boss and I expect to happen plays out, and the Angels end up going to Long Beach, and you end up seeing Disney acquire that Angel Stadium site, and they build another damn theme park down there. Hey, we all know that Disneyland's wanted to basically try to create a West Coast version of Epcot down in that area since the 80s, basically. There's a site big enough right there for you to build a third theme park on right there is that stadium site if that were to become available. And, let's be real, people. The Angels do not drive the dollar sign or the needle in Anaheim. It's Mickey the Rat that drives the needle in Anaheim. Let's be real. So it's going to be real interesting to ultimately see how that whole situation plans out, and if something's able to be done that ends up keeping the Angels there in the long term, or if, regardless if it's a new owner or with Moreno still going forward, if ultimately what I think ends up happening happens, which is I really think the Angels are going to end up in Long Beach. But, again, we'll have to wait and see what goes on with that. Looking forward to hopefully having my first of 2 consecutive negative COVID tests tomorrow, because I will be retesting tomorrow after having that positive test back on last Saturday. Pretty much, it's just you wait roughly about 5 days before you retest, and then if you obviously have a negative test, you wait about another 2 to 3 days to see if you get that second negative test. So definitely keeping my fingers crossed that these next 2 tests I take are both negative tests, so that way I can partake in that doubleheader that I have planned to be a part of next Saturday, which includes the Cal football home opener up at Tightwad Hill at 1 p.m., and then, of course, the Roots taking on San Antonio in a nightcap over at Laney College at 7 p.m. But, again, obviously, if for some reason or another I'm still COVID positive, then I continue to basically chill here at the studio until I get over it. Because, again, it's really sad and unfortunate and ridiculous that folks out there just still continue to not want to take this seriously and continue to help spread this around. Because, look what happens. We still got it going on. It now finally hit my mother-in-law, got my wife, got me. So, it's still something that, unfortunately, we're still sitting here dealing with, and we sooner or later need to really wake up to the seriousness of this and do a better job of getting this whole COVID situation under control, so that way we can get back to some form of normal, not worry about passing bugs and viri like this back and forth. But will we get to that? Who the hell knows? It could just end up being the point where just COVID-related stuff is just like the flu, and we just got to take a damn shot and vaccine and booster every year. But just, again, people, obviously my wife and I are a testament to the fact that this thing is still going on and is not over yet. So just continue to do your part to stop the spread mask up, do what you got to do, get vaccinated, boosted, or even if you're one of those youths that can't get the booster and vaccine because of obviously health issues, just continue doing what you're doing to help not spread that. Again, keep my fingers crossed that I'm on the path to being over this crap finally come tomorrow when I take those first of 2, hopefully, negative tests. On behalf of the rest of the cast of AsFAnRadio, thank you all, as always, for tuning in to your number one source for everything and anything on your Oakland Athletics. Y'all take care and enjoy what is left here of this under an hour until midnight of your Wednesday night. The views and opinions of our cast, our guests, and our listeners are in no way, shape, or form affiliated with the Oakland Athletics or Major League Baseball. Good night, Walter Haas. Good night, King Al. Your son's still a mark-ass punk with a bowl cut that I hope forever continues to see that damn team that should still be in Oakland get its ass handed to him this year and forever every year beyond it until the brand comes back to Oakland. Good night, Chesty Puller, wherever you may be looking over the Marines of the past, present, and dumb enough to join the Corps in the future. Good night, Auntie Di-Di. Love you and miss you. And, of course, good night to you as well, Godfather Grizz Jones. We will forever love you and miss you as well. As always, ladies and gentlemen, don't drink and drive. Don't... Let me start over again. As always, ladies and gentlemen, don't drink and drive. Wrap it before you tap it. All that same old crap that I used to get told at every single safety brief that I used to go to when I was in Uncle Sam's Misguided Misfits, a.k.a. the United States Marine Corps, because we want to see you right back here at our normal time on our usual Twitch channel when show number 317 smacks you all upside the head on September the 1st at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Looking forward to Bossman being back here with me as well after he handles the things he needs to over on his point end at this point in time. Again, take care, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll catch you, of course, here on next week's edition of the show. Until September the 1st, ladies and gents, good night, Oakland and beyond. And as always, be sure to stay Oakland, my friends.